Chapter 1330. Wei Yang and the other officers were a little anxious. They had been ordered to help Zhou Wen ascend the rankings, but ever since they came here, they had only seen Zhou Wen once. It was no wonder they had such thoughts. When they learned that Zhou Wen had returned, the officers immediately came to see him. "Mr. Zhou, when are we setting off for Venus?" Wei Yang was the calmest among the officers, but he was the captain. He had the obligation to speak on behalf of all the officers. Most of these questions were asked on behalf of the officers. Tomorrow. Zhou Wen naturally hoped that it would be as soon as possible. After understanding this matter, he still had other things to do. More and more powerful creatures appeared. He had to think of a way to make Slaughterer's terror transformation as soon as possible. He felt uneasy if he didn't advance to the terror grade. Tomorrow. All the officers were stunned. Although they hoped that Zhou Wen could complete the mission as soon as possible, they didn't have much time to study and practice if they were in such a rush tomorrow. It was indeed a little rushed. "Mr. Zhou, isn't tomorrow a little rushed?" Wei Yang said with a frown. "There's no rush. Prepare yourselves. We will set off at 7 tomorrow morning. We won't miss breakfast." Zhou Wen planned on returning for breakfast after he ascended the rankings. However, Wei Yang and company misunderstood him. They thought that Zhou Wen meant to wake up early and have breakfast. Wei Yang and company looked at Zhou Wen and asked, "Mr. Zhou, how are we going to practice tonight?" "Practice? What practice?" Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback as he asked Wei Yang in puzzlement. "We'll be heading to Venus tomorrow morning. Don't we need to practice our teamwork tonight?" Wei Yang's expressionless face revealed a rare look of puzzlement. "There's no need to practice. Zhou Wen could do it alone. Furthermore, his life level would be the highest. Calamity-grade bullets would only attack him and not Wei Yang and company. There was no point in practicing." "Then what do you want us to prepare?" Wei Yang asked. "Just prepare. Go back and take a shower and change into clean clothes. It's best if there's the Presidential Manor's logo. That way, people will know that someone from the Presidential Manor is challenging the level." "That'll do." Zhou Wen thought of Hui Haifeng's suggestion and said to them, "It's best if you stick a flag on your back and write something like Federation Soldier. It'll be easier for people to know who you are representing. We are all officers, at least colonels. How can there be any lowly soldiers?" An officer said, "I didn't say that you have to be called Federation soldiers. You can write something like the Federation Death Squad. Of course, this is just my suggestion." Zhou Wen hurriedly changed his words when he realized that there was something wrong with the officers' gazes. The name, Death Squad, was too unlucky. It was no wonder that the officers looked at him strangely. Zhou Wen ignored them and returned, leaving Wei Yang and company staring at each other. "Captain, is this Zhou Wen reliable? There's no plan or cooperation. Why is he bringing us up? Do you want to die?" An officer said indignantly. "Exactly, what does he take us for? Suicide squad? This is clearly sending us to our deaths." The officers didn't believe that they could reach the rankings without even a single terror grade. Now that he saw how casual Zhou Wen was, he found it even more unbelievable. "Let's do as Mr. Zhou said. Go back and prepare. We'll gather tomorrow morning," Wei Yang said expressionlessly. Although he had his doubts, he was still willing to believe in Hui Haifeng's orders. The next morning, Wei Yang and the rest of the soldiers had already gathered before 7. When Zhou Wen arrived, they were already lined up. "You guys really wrote it." Zhou Wen realized that everyone was carrying a flag on their back. The flag was in the style of the League flag, but on the flag, there were the words Federation Death Squad written in white. Clearly, it had been added later. "Isn't this your order, Mr. Zhou?" Wei Yang said. They had previously felt that the name was inauspicious, but when they thought about how the chances of returning alive with Zhou Wen were slim, they realized that they would only be cannon fodder. The name of the Suicide Squad was appropriate, so they used it. "Very good. Let's set off then. It won't be too late to come back for breakfast after we get on the rankings. With that said, Zhou walked towards the Rubik's Cube. Only then did everyone understand that when Zhou said that he wouldn't delay breakfast, he meant that he would eat it when he returned. "All right, we can only be starving ghosts now," an officer muttered softly. Zhou heard it, but he didn't place it in his ears. This was because Truth Listener had given him too many voices. He had no interest in listening to what the officers were saying as he walked towards the Rubik's Cube. After Zhou and company left Overseer Manor, Sheng immediately secretly reported to Tianzhua. "Overseer, they have set off. Do you think those people can really get on the rankings?" Tianzhua stared in the direction Zhou had left in. He held a cup of tea but didn't drink it. Of course. With young Master Wen around, he will definitely be able to get on the rankings. It just depends on the method, Sheng answered firmly. "You sure are confident in him," Tianzhua said coldly. "It's not that I'm confident, but especially confident. Young Master Wen's strength is there for all to see. If the Holy Spirit Association and the League of Defender can get on the rankings, young Master Wen will definitely be able to as well. Furthermore, his ranking will definitely be above theirs," Sheng said with certainty. "Let's hope so," Tianzhua said without batting an eyelid. The Rubik's Cube lit up again, immediately attracting the attention of many humans. Someone is challenging the Venus dimensional zone again. Who will it be this time? Everyone felt uneasy as they watched the livestream in anticipation. When they saw more than 10 officers carrying the Federation flag on their backs, everyone was stunned. Federation Suicide Squad. This name is really not particular. Not only is it not particular, but they're practically sick of living. I recognize those officers. They should be from the president's side. Their appearance here means that the presidential residence finally wants to get on the rankings. I know those officers too. They are indeed elites on the president's side, but they should only be at the mythical stage, right? Isn't it a dream to get on the rankings with just these people? Who's that young man in casual clothes? Why does he look familiar? Finally, someone focused their attention on Zhou, who was the only one in the team who wasn't wearing a military uniform. Zhou was wearing a heavenly robe. Although it wrapped him quite tightly, it didn't cover his head. Soon, someone recognized him. That's Zhou, Luoyang's Zhou. He's second only to the two gods of war in Luoyang, Tianzhua and Leng Zhongjing. So the president invited Zhou, but even if it's Zhou, it's impossible for him to get on the rankings with so many mythical officers? Isn't the president's decision a little too casual? Chapter 1331. The Holy Spirit Association and the League of Defender were also paying attention to this battle. They naturally weren't as superficial as the average person. They didn't believe that Hui Haifeng would make such a low-level mistake, but they were puzzled by Hui Haifeng's decision to send such a lineup. Although there weren't many Terra-grade experts in the presidential palace, he couldn't just send a group of mythical creatures to make up the numbers, right? This wasn't something that could be resolved with numbers. However, Zhou unhurriedly led Wei Yang and company to the metal hemispherical building's platform. Then, he dripped his blood and entered the dimensional zone. Drip your blood in. This is an endless battle. The presidential palace can't even find a spatial expert. Yet, they actually dare to challenge the rankings? As everyone discussed, Zhou had already given the order to kill the metal guards. Hui Haifeng was right. Wei Yang and company were indeed elite. Not only were they well trained, but they were also very powerful. Due to the use of the mythical liquid, they had already advanced to the mythical stage. In a one-on-one situation, or even a one-on-two situation, they weren't at a disadvantage when fighting the metal guards. Zhou saw them skillfully block the door. The metal guards that rushed out were quickly finished off by them. Occasionally, one or two would slip through the net, but they were killed by the officers who dealt the finishing blow. At a glance, Zhou knew that they had put in a lot of practice and research. Furthermore, their research was rather accurate. However, this method was only useful against the metal guards. It was useless against the golden battle god, much less a calamity-grade creature. Furthermore, Zhou felt that this speed was too slow. Yer was still waiting for him to return for breakfast. Pulling out the bamboo blade, Zhou used it as a sword and used the heart-defying sword technique. With a slash, all the metal guards squeezed inside the door were slain at the waist. After 6 strikes, all the metal guards were killed. The alarm on one of the doors sounded. "Mr. Zhou, what should we do?" Wei Yang asked. The soldiers looked at Zhou. "Wait." With that said, Zhou held bamboo blade and walked towards the door where the alarm sounded. The golden battle god's tall and majestic body walked out and fired at Zhou. The Terragrade bullet was many times faster than the metal guard's bullet. Zhou held the bamboo blade and ignored the bullet as he charged forward. Just as everyone thought that Zhou had gone mad, they saw that the bullet seemed to turn on its own and avoid his body. Without giving Golden Battle God a chance to fire a second shot, Zhou's bamboo blade had already stabbed into Golden Battle God's body. Just one slash had shattered the energy source in its body, causing the Golden War God to lose its mobility and die. It didn't even need a second slash. Zhou knew Golden Battle God too well. It was difficult for others to find the location of the energy source immediately, but Zhou didn't even need to look for it. He knew where it was at a glance. Although they were displeased with Zhou, the officers still marveled when they saw Zhou kill a Golden Battle God so cleanly. That bullet just now seemed a little strange. Cave Era frowned. So what if it's a little odd? This is only a Terragrade Golden Battle God. In front of a Calamity-grade bullet, this move will probably be useless, said Hermit. Golden Battle Gods appeared one after another. Zhou quickly charged forward with bamboo blade in hand. Each strike was so clean that it left one's heart cold. None of the Golden Battle Gods could withstand a single strike from him. Furthermore, the situation was rather strange. It was as though every bullet shot by the Golden Battle God automatically circled around Zhou. Of course, the main reason why he could kill them in one strike was that Zhou knew the Golden Battle God too well. Not only could he attack their weaknesses, but he could also directly destroy their energy source. If it were anyone else, even if they were stronger, it would be very difficult for them to achieve Zhou's results. This seemed very ordinary to Zhou, but it shocked the Federation. Zhou wore the heavenly robe, but there were no signs of him fusing with a guardian or using mythical fluid. He seemed to be a pure human. However, a pure human had killed 6 Terragrade Golden Battle Gods in the blink of an eye. No one had ever seen such a scene. Although Human Emperor was known as the strongest human, no one knew if Human Emperor was pure human. Many of Zhou's performances were obvious to all. Professor Gu, Zhou should be pure human, right? Apart from Human Emperor, I've never heard of a pure human having such achievements. He killed 6 Golden Battle Gods in a moment with one strike. Is such a standard really something a pure human can achieve? The Federation Freedom Investigation Bureau's host said excitedly with her eyes lit up. Professor Gu coughed lightly and explained, after using mythical fluid, there are obvious mutations, but there are also some that aren't obvious. This is especially so for mythical fluid made from humanoid dimensional creatures. After using it, there are almost no characteristics of the creatures. It's also possible that Zhou used that kind of mythical fluid. Is there no possibility of a pure human? The host asked indignantly. Clearly, she was also a nationalist and hoped that high-level pure human experts could appear. Of course, there's still a possibility. However, based on the information humans currently have, it's indeed very difficult. There's no precedent of success. Professor Gu seemed to feel that there was no need to continue this topic. He continued, the information on the Terragrade Golden Battle God has been mostly grasped. It's not difficult for the top experts of the Federation to kill them. The next calamity-grade bullet will be Zhou Wen and Company's greatest test. After a pause, Professor Gu said, I have a guess. Although it's just a guess, other than that, I can't think of any other possibility. Professor Gu, what's your guess? The host hurriedly asked. Professor Gu said, mythical creatures clearly aren't of much use in the Venus dimensional zone. Why did they bring so many mythical officers in? Furthermore, we've already analyzed it in the past. This calamity-grade creature can only kill one person at a time. Even the 7th shot won't be able to kill a second person. Are you saying that these mythical officers are actually used to block bullets? To ultimately achieve the goal of getting Zhou Wen on the rankings? The host's eyes lit up. I've never said that. I'm just pointing out the doubts in my heart for everyone's reference, Professor Gu said indifferently. However, Professor Gu's guess immediately made many viewers have a bad association. They felt that it was definitely the case. Otherwise, why would Zhou Wen bring so many useless mythical officers? It was obvious that he was looking for a shield. Instantly, there was endless cursing on the internet. Many people clearly couldn't tolerate the thought of using the lives of so many soldiers to exchange for a ranking on the rankings. Hui Haifeng instantly became the target of attacks from the internet. He received more attention than the day he was inaugurated as the Federation president. Even some officers had similar thoughts. They couldn't help but secretly retreat, not daring to get too close to Zhou Wen, afraid that they would be used as a shield. Bang! The calamity-grade gunshot finally sounded. Chapter 1332. I'll go in first. Wait a while before entering. Maintain a distance of at least 100 meters from me. Remember not to stand behind me. It's best if you enter through another door. After Zhou Wen said that to Wei Yang and company, he walked towards one of the doors. After taking a few steps, he heard a gunshot. The calamity-grade bullet was too fast. No one could see it at all. They only saw Zhou Wen's figure move a distance as though he had teleported. And behind Zhou Wen, a hole had been pierced through the metal wall. He dodged it? Teleportation? This doesn't make sense. The hearts of the spectators skipped a beat as Xia Luchuan said in surprise. It was no wonder that Xia Luchuan was surprised. Teleportation was indeed fast, but activating it required a certain amount of time. This activation time was enough to be shot countless times. Xia Xuanyue's tense nerves relaxed a little. After some thought, she said, it shouldn't be teleportation. It looks more like he's very fast. It's impossible to dodge a calamity-grade bullet purely with speed. No matter how fast a Terra-grade is, it's impossible for it to be faster than a calamity-grade. Furthermore, the speed of a bullet is considered fast among calamity grades, Xia Luchuan said. If it was teleportation, there wouldn't be a trajectory left behind, but I saw the remnant trajectory, Xia Xianhua said. That's strange. From the existing data, a calamity grade's stats have a crushing advantage over a Terra grade. Xia Luchuan naturally believed in Xia Xianhua because she had very strong eyesight. It wasn't just the Xia family. Many large factions found it unbelievable when they saw Zhou Wen dodge a calamity-grade bullet. Spatial powers? Cave Era looked at Jiyue. Jiyue shook his head and said, no, teleportation isn't that fast. He can't dodge a calamity-grade bullet unless he can predict the arrival of the bullet in advance. That's impossible. There's no pattern to the timing of a calamity-grade bullet's firing. Speed? That's impossible, right? Cave Era looked at the screen with a solemn expression. Such a conversation was constantly repeated in the various factions. No one believed that Zhou Wen could dodge a calamity-grade bullet with his speed. There were Terra grades that were known for their speed in all the major factions, but none of them could match a calamity grade. They weren't even close. Zhou Wen dodged the bullet and walked through the door. Wei Yang and company now knew why Zhou Wen didn't allow them to stand behind him. Wei Yang led them through another door and took another path. Indeed, with Zhou Wen attracting the attention of the calamity-grade creature, no bullets attacked Wei Yang and company. They headed straight for the Golden Palace. Not long after Zhou entered the tunnel, a second bullet was fired at him, but he still managed to dodge it. With the heavenly robe and his luck that exceeded 100, his lucky dodge was probably maxed out. Without moving, the heavenly robe brought his body to dodge the bullet. This time, the various factions were paying attention. With something to focus on, it was easier to determine. This time, they were certain that Zhou hadn't used any teleportation abilities. Instead, he had dodged the bullets with pure speed. That's impossible. How can he be so fast? Cave Era couldn't believe that Zhou was that fast. It's not Speed, Immortal, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said. Bang! Gunshots rang out incessantly as Zhou dodged the bullets again and again. Not a single bullet managed to hit his body. It's amazing. It's really amazing. This speed is probably comparable to the speed of light, right? It's a miracle that a human can reach such speed. Professor Gu, what do you think? The host said excitedly. Yes, it's fast. However, no matter how fast he is, he can't dodge the seventh shot that will kill him. Professor Gu continued his analysis. For a Terra grade to have the speed to dodge a Calamity grade bullet, the expenditure will definitely be immense. According to the previous analysis, the seventh shot is a bullet that will never stop unless it kills. Therefore, it's impossible for Zhou to dodge the seventh shot. From the looks of it, his existence should only be bait. With Zhou stalling for time, the other Suicide Squad members can rush to the Golden Palace. Do you mean that Zhou will die under the seventh shot? The host asked in disbelief. At the very least, I don't see any possibility of him surviving, Professor Gu answered with certainty. Then let's wait and see if Zhou will fall under the seventh shot. No matter what, it's already very impressive that he can come this far. For the glory of the Federation and humanity, they have sacrificed too much. The host seemed to have a good impression of Zhou. Upon hearing Professor Gu's analysis, most people found it reasonable, but those who truly understood Zhou knew that it was impossible for him to do such a thing. He wasn't that kind of person. However, there were still many people who were worried for Zhou. At the very least, Zhou looked no different from a human. Compared to the Guardians and the members of the Holy Spirit Association, they were more inclined towards Zhou. Furthermore, Zhou was representing the Federation government this time. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was representing humanity. Soon, Zhou dodged the first 6 shots. There was silence in front of the screen as everyone held their breath. All they could hear was their hearts pounding. Bam! When the 7th shot sounded, many people couldn't help but tremble. There were even soft-hearted girls who screamed and covered their faces, not daring to see the outcome. This. Blood Shaman looked at the scene and was tongue-tied. He couldn't even speak. The other members of the League of Defender also widened their eyes as their pupils constricted, as though they had seen something unbelievable. Almost everyone who saw this scene had the same expression. They opened their mouths, wanting to say something, but they didn't know what to say to express their emotions. In the Venus dimensional zone, Zhou heavenly robe fluttered like an immortal. A shining halo circled around him, constantly flashing with light. What's that? Could it be that the bullet is revolving around Zhou? Someone stammered. Although the average person could only see the halo and not the spinning bullet, as long as they weren't too stupid, they could roughly guess what it was. What the hell? The bullet is revolving around Zhou, but it doesn't hit him. Could it be that he has an affair with a calamity-grade creature on Venus? Li Xian widened his mouth in shock, enough to swallow a goose egg. How did he do it? Xia Xianyue was pleasantly surprised. Professor Gu's eyeballs nearly fell to the ground as he remained silent for a long time. Different people had the same question, but no one could answer them. Chapter 1333. Zhou charged toward the Golden Palace with the spinning bullets around him. The calamity-grade bullets shot at him again, but he dodged them all. Before the seventh bullet of the second round was fired, Zhou had already reached the steps of the Golden Palace. However, he did not climb up the step. Instead, he stopped in front of them. This time, Zhou had accepted Hui Haifeng's bribe and was working for Hui Haifeng. It wasn't appropriate for him to walk up himself, nor could he get his name on the rankings. Furthermore, Zhou didn't know if the Rubik's Cube would directly determine their names when they entered the rankings or if they could write it themselves. It would be better if he could casually write it, but if the Rubik's Cube determined who he was, Zhou would have to be careful. He couldn't casually enter the rankings with other identities. When people saw Zhou dodge bullet after bullet and finally arrive in front of the Golden Palace, they were excited, imagining that Zhou was finally reaching the peak. However, to their surprise, Zhou stopped in front of the steps. What is he doing? He could have climbed up before the seventh shot of the second round. If he stopped, wouldn't he have to endure the second sure-kill bullet? While everyone was puzzled, another gunshot rang out. In the blink of an eye, another halo formed by rapidly spinning bullets appeared around Zhou. Holy sh*t. That works. Xiao Luchuan jumped up. No one had ever seen someone play like this. He clearly didn't have to take the sure-kill bullet, but he insisted on stopping. Too showy. We're both children of the same parents, but how can you be so showy? What is he trying to do? Who are you showing off to? Is Zhou related to that dimensional creature? Why didn't you kill him? Zhou stood in front of the steps as his body fluttered with the heavenly robe. The halo around him shimmered, making him look like an immortal that had descended to the mortal world. He dodged one bullet after another. The third bullet formed a halo around him, but it still couldn't hurt him. Everyone was starting to get numb. Wei Yang and company were only at the mythical stage after all. They didn't have the speed of a terragrade. They only ran over when the sixth bullet halo formed around Zhou. Wei Yang and company couldn't help but be taken aback when they saw Zhou dancing in front of the stairs like an immortal with a bullet halo surrounding him. Go up, Zhou said to Wei Yang. Only then did the spectators realize that Zhou wasn't going up himself. He was waiting for Wei Yang and company. F*ck me. What's the meaning of this? Instead of going up himself, he's waiting for someone else to go up. Is he playing for someone else? This isn't called a substitute player. It should be called a guarantee, right? Guaranteed entry? You can give it to me? What a show. Everyone was rendered speechless as they looked at Zhou, who was surrounded by the halo like a perfected immortal. Their expressions turned abnormally odd. The scene was a bit different. The creatures that had tried to get onto the leaderboard before had all died horribly. The Holy Spirit Society and the League of Defender being able to make it onto the leaderboard was quite shocking. However, when it came to Zhou, it was like he was escorting a primary school student across the road. The scene was extremely jarring. Wei Yang nodded at Zhou before taking down the flag on his back. The other members of the Suicide Squad followed Wei Yang's example. They took down the flag and held it in their hands as they followed Wei Yang up the stairs. After Wei Yang and company reached the top, they raised the flag and waved it. More than 10 flags flew up together. When Hui Haifeng saw this scene, he spat out the mouthful of water he had just drunk. Previously, when he told Zhou to bring the flag up, he was just joking. He never expected Zhou to really do it. However, this scene that should have made one's blood boil was a little funny no matter how he looked at it. After Wei Yang and company reached the top, the calamity-grade creature immediately stopped shooting. According to the program, a metal ball flew out from the door and landed in Wei Yang's hand. The Rubik's Cube screen switched to the leaderboard. On the leaderboard, another name appeared: Federal Suicide Squad. People didn't care about the name. Their gazes were all on the back of the Federation's Suicide Squad. They wanted to know how many stars they could obtain from such a challenge. It's actually 3 stars. People realized that there were 3 shining stars at the back, instantly surpassing the Holy Spirit Society and the League of Defenders in third place. Awesome. Hui Haifeng felt refreshed. He had originally thought that 1 star would be enough, but now that he had surpassed the Holy Spirit Society and the League of Defenders, he felt relieved. Now, everyone knew the influence of the League of Defenders on the Federation. The influence of the Presidential Palace was too small. This ranking might be a good start. Soon, the Presidential Palace arranged for a press conference. Many reporters raised many sharp questions on the spot. For example, was inviting Zhou Wen to maintain his ranking considered a humiliation to the Federation government? After all, everyone knew that Zhou Wen was third in Luoyang. However, after this battle, in the hearts of many people, Zhou Wen was no longer just ranked third in Luoyang. Hui Haifeng wasn't angry at all. He stared at them and answered the question. This question is very stupid. Isn't Zhou Wen human? Isn't he a part of the Federation? As a member of the people of the Federation, I should make my due contributions to the Federation. Is this also wrong? President, is Zhou Wen a pure human? President, why are those bullets revolving around Zhou Wen? What kind of magical abilities does Zhou Wen have? While Hui Haifeng was holding a press conference, Zhou Wen was very vexed. The 6 bullets kept flying around him. Even after he left the Venus dimensional zone, the bullets didn't stop attacking him. In the past, as long as he quit the game, the surrounding bullets would naturally disappear. In reality, it was clearly different. These bullets wouldn't disappear into thin air. Zhou Wen's plan to return for breakfast was ruined. All he could do was think of a way to deal with the 6 bullets around him. Otherwise, he would have to keep wearing the heavenly robe and lucky equipment. He definitely had to return the invincible lucky star. It was impossible for him to keep wearing it. He tried all sorts of methods, even walking to the side of the mountain and letting the bullets hit the mountain, but it was useless. Calamity-grade bullets seemed to be able to penetrate everything. Nothing could stop them. They definitely wouldn't stop until they killed their target. The only solution seemed to be to find a scapegoat and use his life to block the bullet. Zhou Wen's heart suddenly stirred. Wait, this might not be a bad thing. These calamity-grade bullets will constantly surround me. From another perspective, they are equivalent to my weapons. 6 calamity-grade bullets. As Zhou Wen thought about it, his face was about to bloom with joy. Chapter 1334. These are 6 sure-kill bullet. Even a calamity-grade dragon turtle can't block them. If I can find a calamity-grade creature, the premise is that it can't kill me. I just want to rush forward and hug it. 6 bullets should be able to kill a calamity, right? Zhou Wen thought as he took out his phone and entered the dungeon. The outcome disappointed him. There were no bullets surrounding the blood-colored avatar. In that case, I can only find calamity-grade creatures in reality. Zhou Wen immediately felt that the danger was a little too high. Heavenly Robe's lucky evasion was indeed very powerful, but there were limits to it. It was fine if it was a single-target attack like bullets, but even if it was a large-scale arrow rain, it should be very effective. However, if he encountered a large-scale fire or ice attack, there was no way to dodge. No matter how high his lucky evasion rate was, it was impossible for him to dodge it. With this in mind, there were fewer places he could go. The few known calamities didn't seem to be easy to approach. It's best I don't go to Chess Mountain. The last time, Enchantress couldn't leave the Fiend Tomb and was intimidated by me. If I really rush up, there's no way I can dodge the heavenly fire. Zhou Wen thought about it and felt that no matter which calamity grade he provoked in reality, it would be very dangerous. After all, calamities had calamity domains, and single-target attacks were rare. Is there no calamity grade like the dragon turtle? Zhou Wen searched through his memories, hoping to find a suitable target. Suddenly, Zhou Wen thought of a place, Forbidden City, which he had previously been to. The current owner of Forbidden City was likely the one inside the log. According to what Zhou Wen knew, she had the power of lightning and liked to use lightning to strike people. That thing seemed to be dodged. With Zhou Wen's current lucky equipment and Heavenly Robe's dodge ability, he should be able to dodge it. She nearly killed me last time. It's time to settle the score. Zhou Wen thought to himself, but he didn't dare head to Forbidden City immediately. After returning to Overseer's office, Zhou Wen first went to find the antelope. This fellow was still lazy all day. Apart from eating and sleeping, he didn't see it do anything else. Zhou Wen was surrounded by bullets. When he entered, he instantly blasted the wall near the door into smithereens. The antelope looked up at him, and when its gaze landed on the bullets, it seemed somewhat surprised. Ahem, brother antelope, have you been feeling better recently? Do you want me to buy you some supplements? Zhou Wen said with a light cough. I can't handle the bullets on you. Find someone else. The antelope lazily closed its eyes again. No, I don't mean that. I just want to ask you if I can avoid the thunder and lightning of the guy in the Forbidden City with my equipment? Zhou Wen knew that the antelope knew a lot about that fellow. For safety's sake, he asked it first. With the Heavenly Robe and high luck, you can indeed dodge calamity-grade attack. However, it's limited to attacks that can be dodged. It's useless against a large-scale indiscriminate attack. The antelope seriously looked at Zhou Wen's equipment and the 6 bullets before continuing. The person in the Forbidden City doesn't just attack a single target. Just as Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed, he heard the antelope say, but it's not like you don't have a chance. If your plan is good, your 6 bullets might really make her suffer. What do you want? Zhou Wen felt that something was amiss. The antelope seemed to be interested in this matter, so he stared at it warily and asked. The antelope chuckled. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. My injuries are too serious. Back at Mount Laojun, I almost lost my life. Although I've recovered a little now, it's too slow. Furthermore, it's very difficult for me to fully recover without the help of external forces. There are a lot of good things in the Forbidden City, and a few of them are helpful to my injuries. If you cooperate with me, we'll split the things we get from Forbidden City in half fairly. How about that? What kind of fair distribution is this? I'm bearing the risk and even have to put in the effort to fight her. You just moved your mouth and took advantage of it and you want 50%? Zhou Wen naturally didn't agree. Without me, you wouldn't have a chance to approach her at all. This is key technology. I'm using my technology to invest. Getting 50% isn't much, the antelope said with a smile. If you aren't afraid of death, you can give it a try yourself. Tell me first, how can I approach her safely? Zhou Wen asked. It's definitely impossible to fight her head-on. She can power the Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array. When the time comes, you probably won't even be able to see her, much less approach her. It's even a problem if you can escape from the Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array. The antelope lowered its voice and said, the only way is to sneak an attack. With the power of these 6 bullets, finish her off when she's off guard. Are you crazy? Sneak an attack on a calamity grade? Do you think it's possible to not be discovered? Zhou Wen didn't believe it was as simple as the antelope made it out to be. You definitely can't do it yourself. You need my help, so 50% isn't much, the antelope said. What good things are there in Forbidden City? Zhou Wen was considering if he should take the risk. There are many good things. After Purple Star Lord returns to Forbidden City, many hidden dimensional zones will open. The antelope's saliva splattered as it told Zhou Wen about the good things inside. After listening for a while, Zhou Wen was truly tempted. Alright, we'll split it 50-50. However, you have to tell me the complete plan first. I'll decide if I want to go. If I go, I'll definitely give you 50%. Zhou Wen ultimately couldn't resist the temptation. The antelope was very straightforward this time as it told Zhou Wen its plan in full detail. The weather in the capital wasn't very good during this season. It was very dry and the sandstorm was strong. When the wind blew, one's face would itch. It was because there was too much sand in the air. Most people weren't willing to go out at this time. Even the shops by the side of the road had their doors and windows closed. The pedestrians on the road came and went in a hurry. However, there was a blonde girl who looked to be 12 or 13 years old on the street. Her clothes were abnormally clean as she slowly strolled along the road. As she walked, she looked around as though she was looking for something. The girl was very beautiful. No matter how one looked at her, there was nothing wrong with her. She was so perfect that she didn't look human. Instead, she looked like a work of art. "Young lady, the sandstorm outside is so strong. Come in and have a cup of milk tea to avoid the wind." The owner of a milk tea shop seemed to have noticed the blonde girl early on. When the blonde girl walked to his shop, he opened the door against the wind and greeted her. Although the blonde girl didn't mind the sandstorm, she still walked in when she smelled the sweet fragrance in the milk tea shop and saw the owner's friendly smile. Chapter 1335. Little girl, what would you like to drink? The most famous thing in my shop is the silk stocking milk tea. Of course, the pearl milk tea here is also very good. The boss introduced with a smile. Can I have all of them? The blonde girl looked at the beautiful pictures on the brochure and asked expectantly. Of course, let's have a cup of my best silk stocking milk tea first. The smile on the boss's face became wider and he began to prepare the milk tea. Soon, the boss brought a cup of milk tea to the blonde girl and placed it on the table. Try it. I promise you won't be disappointed. Milk tea as smooth and soft as silk stockings. You will never be able to drink it in the second shop in Kyoto. The blonde girl took a sip of the milk tea, then closed her eyes with a happy expression on her face. Isn't it delicious? Asked the boss. It's really delicious. The blonde girl took one sip after another and quickly drank a cup of milk tea. Then she looked at the boss and asked, You just said that there is pearl milk tea. Is it as good as this? Try it and you will know. The boss smiled and made another cup of pearl milk tea for the blonde girl. This is also delicious. The blonde girl held the cup, and her eyes seemed to melt with happiness. After a while, the girl drank another cup of milk tea. Do you want to drink something else? The boss came over and asked. Thank you, but no, I should go. The blonde girl said and walked out. Wait a minute, you haven't paid yet. The boss quickly stopped the blonde girl. Pay? What is that? The girl looked at the boss of the milk tea shop in confusion. Tian really didn't know what money was. The last time she came to Earth was a long time ago, and someone took care of her at that time. Tian had never tried to use things like money. Don't play dumb there. The owner's expression immediately changed. His friendly expression disappeared and was replaced by a fierce one. He reached out to grab Tian's arm and said in an evil tone, How dare you drink milk tea when you don't have money? Be a good girl. The boss's palm touched Tian's arm and the sound stopped. His fingertips lit up with a golden light. The golden light instantly spread to his entire body, turning his body into gold. It was real gold, and it was still shining with a golden light. It was like a 24K pure gold statue, and it still had a fierce expression on its face as it reached out to grab Tian. Tian looked at the owner who had turned into a golden statue, sighed, shook her head, and walked out of the shop. After a while, a customer came into the milk tea shop. When he saw the golden statue, he was shocked. Zhouwen brought the chick and the antelope to the capital. As he walked, he browsed the news about the capital online. Originally, he wanted to see the recent situation of the Forbidden City and see if there were any humans exploring the Forbidden City. It would be best if he could get information about the Forbidden City. But who knew that before he could find any information on the Forbidden City, he would see many headlines on the front pages of the media, all of which were reporting news about the gold men. Zhouwen took a casual look and roughly knew that there had suddenly been many gold men in the capital. These gold men looked exactly the same as real people, but they were made of high-purity gold. However, according to the investigation of the capital's police department, every gold statue was made from a real person. As for the people who looked like the gold statues, they had all disappeared. The entire capital was discussing this matter. Some people suspected that a powerful dimensional creature had entered the capital and turned those people into gold men. Others said that this was a deliberate prank by someone. Some people even said that this was a sign of the birth of a calamity-grade creature. In any case, there were all kinds of rumors, causing everyone in the capital to panic. Many people didn't dare go out, afraid that they would become gold men. It's no wonder there are so few people on the streets of the capital. So that's why. Only then did Zhou come to a realization. He had been wondering why the capital looked much more desolate than before when he came to the capital. In the beginning, Zhou imagined that after Xia Zhiwang's death, the Xia family had declined, causing the capital to decline as well. It turned out that it was caused by the gold men. Antelope, what do you think about these gold men? Zhou read the news about the gold men to the antelope. After hearing that, the antelope frowned in thought. Although turning people into gold isn't a very powerful ability, it's also a very rare ability. If a creature really has such an ability, it's probably above the mythical stage. The possibility of it being at the terror grade is relatively high. Since it's possible above the mythical stage, why is the possibility of it being at the terror grade higher? Can't it be at the calamity grade? Zhou asked in puzzlement. If it's at the calamity grade, it wouldn't be these few people turning into gold. Furthermore, as long as a calamity grade isn't bored, why would it turn ordinary people into gold? The antelope said. Zhou thought about it and agreed. However, this matter had nothing to do with them. Their destination was Forbidden City, so they wouldn't stay in the capital for long. It was unlikely they would be so unlucky as to encounter the monster that could turn people into gold. As Tian walked, she sensed Zhou aura. After arriving on Earth, she first went to Tian's hut before heading all the way to the capital. As Yana had sent Zhou information to Tian before she died, she could sense Zhou aura. She knew that Zhou was approaching, so she prepared to wait for him here. Tian originally only wanted to wait quietly for Zhou arrival, but she never expected humans to degenerate to such an extent. Every human who encountered her turned into gold men without exception. In fact, it wasn't Tian who had taken the initiative to turn them into gold men. It was just an additional power that her body automatically produced. As long as it was a creature with malicious intent or a sin, they would turn into gold men when they touched her. If it was a good person with a kind heart, there wouldn't be any problems when they encountered her. But up to now, no one had turned into gold when they encountered Tian. Has humanity degenerated to such an extent? I can't even find a good person. It's no wonder that bad person killed Yana. He must be a super baddie. Tian had already sensed Zhou's arrival and walked towards him. From afar, she saw Zhou carrying Yer and walking on the street with the antelope and bird. Tian walked towards him. As long as such a baddie touches me, he will definitely immediately turn into gold. It can be considered revenge for Yana, Tian thought as she deliberately walked towards Zhou. When Zhou saw Tian, he couldn't help but take a few more looks. This blonde girl was just too beautiful. She was like a doll, so beautiful that there was nothing wrong with her. When Tian brushed past Zhou, she seemed to accidentally slip as she staggered and fell towards him. Chapter 1336. Without any hesitation, Zhou dodged to the side. Without seeing if Tian had fallen, he turned around and teleported away. Do you think I'm a fool? I've been in my terror form the entire time. Ordinary people can't see me at all. Furthermore, there are calamity-grade bullets spinning around me. Not only can this girl see me, but she can even pass through the bullets and fall on me. How can such a person slip? Are you kidding me? Zhou carried Yer and the chick on his shoulder as he teleported away. The antelope wasn't slow either. It was so fast that its shadow couldn't be seen. It was only faster than Zhou's teleportation. Surprisingly, they ran in the same direction, which was the direction of the Forbidden City. Clearly, they believed that Tiantian's strength was extremely terrifying. If they were to escape normally, there was a high chance that they wouldn't be able to escape. If they fled to Forbidden City, they might be able to catch a breather. Tiantian was still in a daze. She believed that a normal person would definitely support her, but what she saw as normal wasn't normal at all. Ordinary people couldn't see Zhou, much less pass through the bullet halo. In Tiantian's eyes, this was extremely normal. Bam! Tiantian fell to the ground and watched in a daze as Zhou and the antelope disappeared. After a while, she got up hatefully. He's indeed a bad person. He didn't even help me up. This made Tiantian even more determined to avenge Yana. After sensing Zhou location, Tiantian chased after him. When Zhou teleported to Forbidden City, he realized that the antelope was already there. It was even faster than him. She didn't chase after me? Zhou asked when he saw the antelope standing outside Forbidden City without entering. It didn't look flustered either. I don't think so. I didn't sense her following, the antelope said with certainty. Clearly, it was very confident in its senses. Could that girl be the culprit who turned humans into gold? Zhou guessed. Maybe. Anyway, she's not simple. Even I can't see through her. She's definitely at the calamity grade. The antelope looked around and didn't find any traces of Tiantian. Let's enter the city first. Even if she catches up, she should be restricted inside, Zhou said as he walked towards the entrance of Forbidden City. Don't use the main entrance. Follow me. The antelope stopped Zhou and followed the wall in another direction. They walked ahead with Tiantian not far behind them. However, Zhou and the antelope didn't see Tiantian. It was as though she was invisible. What are they doing sneaking around? Tiantian walked to Zhou's side. She originally wanted to push him and turn him into gold, but when she saw how secretive they were, she was somewhat curious and retracted her hand. Tiantian squatted by the side and watched as the antelope and Zhou crawled into Forbidden City through a dog hole. She thought to herself, what are they trying to do? When Zhou drilled in, he tried his best to be careful, but the dog hole was just too small. A portion of the wall was still shattered by his bullet. Fortunately, after they went in, they saw an empty courtyard. Apart from some plants, there were no other living things. That golden-haired girl probably hasn't caught up. Zhou lay in the grass and used Truth Listener to listen. He didn't discover any traces of the golden-haired girl in the vicinity. Only then did he feel a little relieved. However, Zhou didn't know that Tiantian was squatting beside him. She was less than a foot away from him and could touch his hair if she reached out. From the looks of it, she probably isn't here for us. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given up so easily. The antelope crawled in the grass and darted its eyes around, but it didn't discover Tiantian. It spat on the ground and cursed. Nothing good ever happens when I follow you out. Tiantian squatted there and watched their conversation as though she was very interested. How do you know that the girl is here for me? Perhaps she's here for you, Zhou said with a twitch of his lips. Pooey, I haven't been out for thousands of years. When I did, I encountered an unlucky fellow like you. How could I have the chance to offend such a powerful enemy? The antelope said unhappily. Let's not talk about this for now. Anyway, she hasn't caught up to us. Let's follow the plan and deal with Purple Star Lady first, Zhou suggested. Alright, let's follow the plan. Don't make any mistakes. Otherwise, both of us will be in trouble. The current Purple Star Lady isn't the same as when she just escaped, the antelope exhorted again. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Zhou used Truth Listener to scan his surroundings. Truth Listener had received too much sound information. Zhou still couldn't analyze all the sounds, but he could already accurately locate a portion of the sounds he wanted to hear. It was much better than before. Soon, Zhou heard everything that was happening nearby. Forbidden City was indeed very different from before. Although it was still 8-armed Nez's layout, there were now many independent dimensional zones in the city. The situation was similar to Dragon Gate Grotto. It was a large dimensional zone that contained many small dimensional zones. It was only because Truth Listener's strength had improved greatly that Zhou wouldn't have been able to hear the situation outside the yard. This was because the yard itself was a dimensional zone. Strange, what is this place? There aren't any dimensional creatures. Why is this a small dimensional zone? As Zhou spoke, he glanced at the dog hole they had entered from and continued, "Furthermore, how can there be a dog hole in Forbidden City that has already turned into a dimensional zone? The dog hole is a part of Forbidden City, so of course it can exist. As for this place, you should have seen a map of Forbidden City in the past, right? Don't you know that this is the legendary Cold Palace?" The antelope said. Cold Palace? Zhou was slightly taken aback. He had naturally heard of the Cold Palace. It was a place used by the emperor to imprison concubines who had committed crimes. However, it was empty and he didn't find any concubines. If it wasn't for the fact that the Cold Palace is isolated from the outside world, we would have long been discovered by Purple Star Lady after causing such a huge commotion here. This is one of the few places that won't attract Purple Star Lady's attention. However, we have to be quick. If Purple Star Lady were to take a look here on a whim, we would be in trouble. As the antelope spoke, it slammed its head into the door of the Cold Palace. After shattering the door, it ran out. The dimensional creatures outside were immediately attracted by it as they chased after it. Zhou followed the agreement and waited for the antelope to lure the dimensional creatures away and cause chaos before sneaking in another direction. Tian looked in the direction the antelope had left in before looking in the direction Zhou had gone. Finally, she walked towards Zhou. Chapter 1337. Purple Star Lord, is this how you treat an old friend and savior? The antelope shouted as it ran. From time to time, it would kick the dimensional creatures in front of it, tearing the soldiers in astral armor apart. It looked very impressive. However, there were too many soldiers in Forbidden City. The ones the antelope killed were just a drop in the bucket. More and more soldiers in astral armor surged over, and there were more and more of them. These soldiers were also strange. When there were only 1 or 2 soldiers, they looked very ordinary and didn't have much combat strength. However, when there were more soldiers, each soldier's combat strength became stronger and stronger. Furthermore, it seemed like there was no limit. Why aren't you waiting for death at Mount Laojun? Why are you here? Purple Star Lord's voice sounded from the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Pooey, I'm still in my prime. It won't be a problem for me to live another 1,000 lifetimes. Even if you die 100 times, I won't die, the antelope said as it spat. The fact that you can speak means that you have already lost the bet with him. What's the point of living longer? You might as well die. If I were you, I would just slam my head against the wall to prevent myself from embarrassing myself, Purple Star Lord said coldly. Purple Star Lord seemed to have hit the antelope's soft spot. The antelope immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. That's because I found it boring to win, so I deliberately let him win. Otherwise, how could I have lost? Besides, what does this have to do with you? Since when was it your turn to spout nonsense? You should worry about yourself. In the future, open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Otherwise, you will be cheated again. Say that again? Purple Star Lord seemed to be truly enraged. I told you to be careful and not be cheated again. Is there anything wrong with that? This is also for your own good. It's to prevent you from being cheated again. If the mighty Purple Star Lord were to be abandoned, you would suffer a fate worse than death. You would be covered in snot and tears. It's just too unsightly. Even an outsider like me can't stand it. Not only did the antelope say that, but it also said more. Boom! Boom! Bolts of purple lightning descended from the sky and bombarded the antelope. F***ck, little Xing Xing, are you serious? The antelope jumped and dodged, dodging the lightning strikes again and again in a sorry state. As it jumped, it shouted, "Little Xing Xing, Grandpa Goat is your savior no matter what. Without Grandpa Goat, you would still be buried and eating dirt. Now that you've grown up, you actually dare to use the purple sky's divine lightning to strike Grandpa Goat? Do you want Grandpa Goat to spank you? Rumble!" The lightning exploded like a bolt from the blue. Patches of purple lightning descended from the sky. If the sea of lightning was reversed, it would not stop until the antelope was smashed into pieces. Your grandpa antelope came to visit you out of goodwill, yet you're so cruel and unscrupulous. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have carried you over even if I had that brat carry a bag of sh*t. The antelope used all sorts of despicable words. With a clang, the door to the Hall of Supreme Harmony was slammed open. A charred piece of wood tore through the door and stood on the roof of the Hall of Supreme Harmony like a lightning rod. After the charred piece of wood appeared, the sky above Forbidden City emitted a purple glow. Clouds condensed as the stars in the sky emitted their radiance. They overlapped as they descended from the sky, illuminating the entire Forbidden City. Now, it wasn't just lightning that descended, but thousands of stars. They were like countless crisscrossing beams of light that slashed at the antelope. "Little Xing Xing, do you really want me dead?" The antelope let out a strange cry as its body moved rapidly like a phantom. It used the buildings in Forbidden City to block the terrifying starlight array. The buildings that were originally protected by the nomological powers of the dimensional zone and were almost indestructible were easily penetrated by the starlight. Soon, the starlight sliced the antelope's body, causing it to let out a tragic cry. According to his agreement with the antelope, Zhou constantly changed his position and route. In the starlight array, he was unobstructed all the way. Soon, he arrived near the Hall of Supreme Harmony. However, Zhou didn't immediately take action. He hid nearby and waited for the opportunity mentioned by the antelope. Tian also walked over with Zhou. The starlight failed to injure her at all, as though the starlight had failed to discover her just like Zhou. There was another explosion in the sky as the stars shifted. The starlight that filled the sky changed. One of the purple stars was like the core of the world. It was surrounded by stars as it shimmered with a strange starlight. When he saw the purple star appear, it was exactly as the antelope had said. Without any hesitation, Zhou teleported to the charred wood and hugged it. Zhou was very familiar with this piece of wood. Back then, he had carried it all the way to Forbidden City. However, although the size and appearance of the wood were the same as before, its texture was completely different. It still looked charred black, but it was as hard and smooth as jade to the touch. Furthermore, it was abnormally cold. Perhaps all his attention was attracted by the antelope, or perhaps he had reached a critical moment in controlling the heavenly cycle stellar array. Purple Star Lord failed to react in time and was hugged by Zhou. Bam! 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 The 6 calamity-grade bullets circling Zhou like rings of stars struck the charred wood, leaving 6 bullet holes in it. Zhou immediately heard a woman's tragic cry from the charred wood. The heavenly cycle stellar array in the sky immediately dissipated. "It's done." Zhou was delighted when the 6 calamity bullets didn't fly out again. "Make way." The antelope descended from the sky and kicked the charred wood, causing it to fall to the roof. Then, it opened its mouth and spat out a yellow talisman before pasting it on the charred wood. Zhou had already retreated to the side as he sized up the charred wood that the antelope had pasted on. He saw that the charred wood was constantly trembling violently as though it would shatter at any moment. He couldn't help but be alarmed. Purple Star Lord hadn't died despite suffering 6 sure-kill bullets. Furthermore, he still had such strength. This fellow's strength was unimaginably terrifying. Now, Zhou was very glad that he hadn't come to settle scores with her alone. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be able to return today. The yellow talisman on the charred wood constantly shimmered with golden light, as though it was suppressing Purple Star Lord inside. However, seeing how the charred wood was trembling so intensely, Zhou asked worriedly, "Is that yellow talisman all right?" "Don't worry. I guarantee that there's nothing wrong with it. She definitely won't be able to rush out for at least 24 hours. Don't be fooled by the yellow talisman's inconspicuous appearance, but it has a great background. As long as it's pasted on, unless someone helps her tear it off, it's impossible for the 5 Imperial Lords to rush out in a short period of time. Furthermore, she suffered 6 of your bullet. Her injuries are definitely not light. Don't worry and follow me to pick up the treasures," the antelope said smugly. "These 2 fellows are indeed baddies. With me around, how can I let you evil people succeed? I'll definitely make you pay for your evil deeds." Tian came in front of the charred wood and reached out to tear off the yellow talisman. Chapter 1338. Just as Zhou and the antelope were about to head to Forbidden City to search for treasures, they suddenly felt that something was amiss. It was as though the vibrations of the charred wood had stopped. They felt that something was amiss as a chill ran down their spines. They couldn't help but turn their heads. Zhou and the antelope's expressions changed drastically. They saw the yellow talisman that was stuck to the wood wobble down. "Oh, antelope, did you forget to apply glue?" Zhou gulped and asked with some difficulty. "That thing doesn't seem to need glue, right?" The antelope was somewhat unsure. It couldn't figure out why the yellow talisman had fallen. It shouldn't have fallen after being stuck to it. "Can you stick it on again?" Zhou asked again. Before the antelope could answer him, a clap of thunder in the sky gave him the answer. Purple lightning descended from the sky and directly reduced the yellow talisman to ashes. "Don't tell me that talisman of yours is a fake?" As Zhou spoke, he retreated, already in a bid to escape. That shouldn't be the case. The antelope was also retreating. The man and antelope turned around to run, but the starlight in the sky filled the sky. Thousands of starlight enveloped the entire Forbidden City, as though the starlight had isolated the entire Forbidden City from the mortal world. Zhou was alarmed to discover that the Singularity Universe's teleportation ability was unable to teleport him out. All he could do was run towards the Forbidden Zone's entrance. Crack! He heard the sound of wood cracking behind him. When he turned his head, he saw that the charred wood had split into 2. A female guardian dressed in purple armor and a dark purple cloak, looking like a monarch, floated in midair. Her eyes seemed to contain the stars of the universe as she glared angrily at Zhou and the antelope. There were 6 bullet holes on her armor, and blood was oozing out of them. However, from the looks of it, the injuries weren't fatal. With the appearance of Purple Star Lady, the starlight in the sky gathered towards her as though she had become the focus of a spotlight. Everything else turned dim, and only she was the only one with all the starlight. Amidst the intense starlight, blood spurted out from the bullet holes. At the same time, the bullets, which were spinning like drill bits, were sucked out by the starlight and floated in front of the Purple Star Lord. Purple Star Lord's eyes narrowed, and thousands of stars fell down, turning into swords of starlight. They slanted down like a river of stars, flying past Purple Star Lord. The 6 bullets were instantly sliced into pieces by the Stellar Sword River. As for the countless stellar swords, they surged towards Zhou and the antelope at an unbelievable speed, reaching the speed of light. "The wind is tight, pull!" The antelope shouted and spat out a talisman. The talisman transformed into a cloud that wrapped around its 4 hooves, causing its speed to increase drastically as it charged towards the gate of Forbidden City. A string of curses ran through Zhou mind. An antelope could unleash the speed of a calamity grade, so it might be able to compete with Purple Star Lord in speed. Zhou didn't have that ability, so all he could do was charge forward with all his might. However, the speed of the swords of Stellar Swords was in no way slower than a calamity grade bullet. How could Zhou outrun them? Soon, a large number of swords of stellar swords stabbed at his back. Thankfully, his luck stat and heavenly robe's lucky dodge came into play. Zhou Wen's heavenly robe fluttered as he constantly dodged the rain of swords. Not a single sword of stellar swords could stab him. Zhou Wen didn't feel any joy. Although he hadn't been stabbed to death, Purple Star Lord looked even more terrifying than the calamity in the Venus dimensional zone. It wasn't impossible for him to break through lucky dodge. As long as he didn't rush out of Forbidden City, everything was still unknown. It wasn't time to rejoice. The antelope ran extremely fast and almost instantly arrived in front of Forbidden City's gate. However, swords of stellar swords descended from the sky, transforming into layers of impenetrable sword walls that completely sealed off the exit. The antelope's body glowed brightly as it opened its mouth and spat out a cloud. The cloud slammed into the sword wall. Although it deflected many swords of stellar swords, it ultimately failed to break through. It was dispersed by the Starlight Sword River. The endless sword streams that resembled the Milky Way rushed towards the antelope, immediately causing it to fall into layers of sword formations. It charged left and right but failed to rush out. Ahem, Star-Lord, it's just a joke. There's no need to take it seriously, right? The antelope said to Purple Star-Lord as it blocked the endless sword streams. Then continue with your joke. With Purple Star-Lord's cold voice, the Starlight Sword River became even more violent. It transformed into a terrifying sword formation that surrounded Zhou Wen and the antelope. Greed is indeed an original sin. I shouldn't have been greedy and followed the antelope to this godforsaken place. Zhou Wen lamented inwardly. Although Lucky Dodge could temporarily save Zhou Wen's life, it was only a dodging ability. It was impossible for Zhou Wen to forcefully break through the sword wall and rush out. However, Zhou Wen was somewhat puzzled. With the antelope's personality, it definitely wouldn't fight a battle it wasn't confident in. Since it was willing to take the risk, it definitely had full confidence. However, the yellow talisman had fallen. This was a little strange. Now wasn't the time to consider this. Zhou Wen's mind raced as he thought of a way to escape. Lucky Dodge could only save his life. It was impossible to crack the Starlight Sword formation. Furthermore, the swords formed from the starlight had already reached the speed of light. Zhou Wen's own speed couldn't keep up, so it was impossible for him to forcefully crack the sword formation. Zhou Wen tried his best to use Truth Listener's ability. In the sword formation, there was much less sound information gathered. Most of the sound information was related to the Starlight Sword formation. After listening for a while, Zhou Wen suddenly realized that the Starlight Sword formation seemed very familiar to him. Isn't this the 28 Lunar Mansion skill? Zhou Wen immediately realized something. Back when he was in the endless sea of stars, he had always wanted to obtain two skills. One was Star Stealer, and the other was the 28 Lunar Mansion skill. They were the lowest level skills, but they were abnormally difficult to drop. Up to now, Zhou Wen only had 27 of the 28 skills. He hadn't managed to drop the last one. The 27 Lunar Mansion skills that Zhou Wen had learned were all defensive skills. They weren't offensive, so Zhou Wen didn't connect the two in the beginning. Now that he felt something amiss, he realized that although the Starlight Sword formation was an offensive sword formation, it had the same effect as the Lunar Mansion skill. If the changes in this sword stance are the same as the Lunar Mansion skill, then wouldn't I be able to predict the future? Even if my speed can't keep up with the speed of the swords of starlight, I can still predict their location. However, I'm still lacking a Lunar Mansion skill. As Zhou Wen pondered, he used Truth Listener to secretly observe the sword formation. Chapter 1339. Zhou Wen could still rely on his luck to dodge and protect himself, but the antelope relied on its own abilities to withstand the sword formation. Only then did Zhou Wen realize that the antelope was quite powerful. Although the antelope couldn't rush out of the sword formation, it managed to withstand the waves of sword formation attacks. It had all sorts of means. One moment it spat out lightning, and the next moment it controlled fire. It was unknown what attribute it had, but it seemed like it could easily control any elemental ability. Although the antelope was already very impressive, it could only barely protect itself in the sword formation. It looked a little pathetic. Tai Jinxing, we were comrades who suffered together back then. There's no need to be so ruthless, right? If you're really angry, you can just beat that punk up to vent your anger. Why make things difficult for an old friend? If you don't feel appeased, I'll help you beat him up. The antelope tried to reason with him. To his surprise, Purple Star Lord didn't fall for it at all. He snorted coldly and said, "We suffered together. To think you have the cheek to say that. Back when we were trapped in the Crystal Palace, we were almost at the end of our rope, but you secretly ate and drank well. You were even afraid of being discovered by us, so you pretended to be half dead. Instead, you tried to trick us into handing over our inheritance. I can't afford to have a friend like you, nor do I have a comrade like you." The antelope's face turned red, but it was thick-skinned after all. It had been through a lot. It coughed lightly to hide its embarrassment and changed the topic. "Let's not talk about the past. The last time I got that punk to dig you out and send you back to Forbidden City, it was really out of good intentions. I originally planned on letting that punk contract you and help you find a good contractor, but who knew it would turn out like that? I still treat you as a friend from the bottom of my heart. I'm thinking of you, Tai Jinxing. That punk is a rare genius. Others are fighting for him, but I can't bear to give him to him. I eagerly sent him over to you." Him? A person who relies on luck has the cheek to call himself a rare genius? Purple Star Lord said mockingly. She could clearly tell that Zhou had relied on luck to dodge the sword formation's attack. Tai Jinxing, ignoring everything else, how many humans can advance to the mythical stage? Even in our era, you haven't seen many, right? He hasn't contracted a guardian yet, so it's not too late for you to contract him now. The antelope tried its best to persuade him, but its situation was worsening. Sword beams had already swept past its body, slicing off its fur. Oh, he advanced to the mythical stage as a pure human? Purple Star Lord finally sized up Zhou seriously. "It's absolutely true. If I, old antelope, say anything false, I'll give my head to you as a ball to kick." The antelope swore, wishing it could pour its heart out to Purple Star Lord. "So what if it is? Do I still need to borrow the power of humans? As long as I'm willing, even if I have to contract with a piece of trash, I can still rule the world." Purple Star Lord said indifferently, "You don't have to waste your breath. Even if you can spout lotus flowers today, you will all die without a doubt." After saying that, a crown of stars appeared on Ziwei Star Lord's forehead, and the stars in the sky resonated with it. The stars that were originally hidden in the universe and could not be seen also appeared one after another, almost occupying the entire sky. In the next moment, starlight fell, as if the end of the world had arrived. Everywhere that could be seen with the naked eye was occupied by starlight. F***ck, you old woman. Did I give you face? Do you really think I don't have any? When the antelope saw this scene, it immediately tore off its disguise and returned to its previous hooligan appearance. It opened its mouth and spat out a talisman. At the same time, the blood it spat landed on the talisman, causing it to glow brightly and block the sky above its head. Clang! 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 The starlight landed on the talisman that resembled a canopy. It was like a steel nail had smashed into a steel plate. Half of it had stabbed in, and soon, the talisman looked like a hedgehog. Blood constantly seeped out of the antelope's mouth as its essence energy surged into the talisman, forcefully preventing it from shattering. However, every starlight that stabbed into the talisman caused the antelope's body to tremble. The more starlight landed, the more the antelope's body trembled. The blood from its mouth flowed even more profusely. Purple Star Lady didn't pay attention to Zhou at first. She knew what kind of ability Lucky Dodge had and how to crack it. Under the massive heavenly cycle stellar array, the starlight descended. There was no space to dodge at all. No matter how high Lucky Dodge's chances were, it was useless. It was ultimately impossible to escape death. However, moments later, Purple Star Lady realized that Zhou wasn't dead. She was somewhat surprised as she took a careful look. She couldn't help but be alarmed. Starlight shimmered around Zhou body as though he was surrounded by a galaxy. The starry sword beams that landed on him fused into the stellar vortex around him like rain falling into the sea, causing it to shine brighter and strengthen. 28 lunar mansions? Purple Star Lady looked at Zhou in surprise. She was the Lady of the Stars, so how could she not recognize what power Zhou was using? As he lacked a lunar mansion skill, Zhou had never used the 28 lunar mansion skills. This time, by studying Purple Star Lady's massive heavenly cycle stellar array, he found the part he lacked and deduced the lunar mansion's skill he lacked. Finally, he gathered all 28 lunar mansion's skills. Using the Singularity Universe to destroy the 28 lunar mansion skills and constantly studying the massive heavenly cycle stellar array, he finally understood why the 28 lunar mansion skills were so difficult to drop despite their low levels. These skills weren't as simple as individual skills. Instead, they were like the massive heavenly cycle stellar array. They could form an array formation, and their strength would increase exponentially. Even if it was a low-level skill, its might would be immeasurable after the 28 skills combined into an array formation. However, it was a little different from Purple Star Lady's Starlight Sword Array. The Starlight Sword Array focused on offense, while Zhou lunar mansions focused on defense. The defensive net formed by the 28 lunar mansions array could not only withstand external forces, but it could also absorb external primordial energy for its own use. If it were any other guardian's power, the lunar mansions array might not have been able to withstand it in the beginning, nor would it have absorbed it so smoothly. However, the Starlight Sword Array and the Lunar Mansions Array came from the same source. They could be considered the same attribute. After the starlight entered the Lunar Mansions Array, it was immediately absorbed without any rejection. This made Zhou Lunar Mansions Array become stronger and stronger. Furthermore, by studying the massive heavenly cycle stellar array, Zhou no longer constantly perfected the lunar mansions, allowing it to constantly improve. After watching for a while, the surprise on Purple Star Lady's face intensified. Zhou lunar mansions array was no longer limited to the 28 lunar mansions. It had even begun to evolve into the massive heavenly cycle stellar array. Chapter 1340. As they came from the same source and their trajectories were becoming more and more similar, coupled with the absorption characteristics of the constellation array, she failed to kill Zhou despite his heavenly cycle stellar array being much stronger than Zhou. Instead, quite a lot of starlight was sucked away. Of course, this was also because Purple Star Lord hadn't targeted Zhou. She had focused most of her attention on the antelope and had originally planned on killing Zhou in passing. That sheep's words aren't completely false. It's one thing for it to know the constellation array, but it was actually able to deduce the massive heavenly cycle stellar array from the constellation array. That's not easy. Purple North Star Lord looked at Zhou with a hint of hesitation. Purple Star Lord naturally wouldn't be willing to contract trash. If she could find a powerful partner, who would want to lead a fool to conquer the world. She had only said those words for the antelope to show her determination. Seeing that not only did Zhou know the constellation array, but he could also reverse the heavenly cycle stellar array, Purple Star Lord was somewhat tempted. The essence energy art and skills Zhou used matched her abilities very well. Coupled with Zhou outstanding perceptivity, it would save her a lot of time and trouble if she could contract him. There was another point that was more important. Zhou was already at the mythical stage. After contracting him, Purple Star Lord no longer needed to hide in the Forbidden City's wood, nor would she be suppressed by Earth's laws. However, thinking back to how Zhou had foiled her plans back then, and how she had been plotted against by him this time, she couldn't take it lying down if she let him off. With a thought, the Purple North Star Lord had an idea. He thought to himself, "Aren't you very perceptive and fond of learning? Then I'll let you learn well." Purple Star Lord destroyed the heavenly cycle-stellar array, and constantly evolved, deliberately showing Zhou the changes. Purple Star Lord's actions weren't really out of good intentions. The universe was endless and there were countless stars. It was almost impossible to completely comprehend the changes of the heavenly cycle-stellar array. There was an end to life and a limit to one's brain, but the universe was infinite. With a limited life and brain, one could comprehend the infinite universe. It would be fine if he just wanted to take a peek at it, but if he really wanted to comprehend it completely, it would be like putting the seawater of the Pacific Ocean into a bottle of purified water. It would be strange if the bottle did not explode. The North Star Lord was able to grasp the grand heavenly cycle-stellar array because of her innate talent. If she did not have such talent, even she would not dare say that she could remember all the variations of the grand heavenly cycle-stellar array. It was impossible for him to remember, because it was an endless series of changes. She made up her mind. If Zhou couldn't comprehend the many changes of the heavenly cycle-stellar array and gave up midway, it would mean that Zhou's talent was only SOSO. If she killed him, so be it. There was no need to feel pity. If Zhou really continued studying it, he would probably go crazy without her doing anything. At the end of the day, Purple North Star Lord did not wish to let Zhou off. He would die either way. Zhou naturally didn't know what Purple North Star Lord was thinking. However, the massive heavenly cycle-stellar array constantly changed in front of him. Beams of starlight fused into his constellation array. Zhou didn't stand on ceremony as he absorbed them and fully comprehended their profundities. Comprehending the infinite with the limited might indeed make one go crazy in the end, but Purple North Star Lord had neglected an important problem. It couldn't be said that she had neglected it. It should be said that she didn't know much about Zhou's sky-stealing sun-shifting art and the singularity universe. The sky-stealing sun-shifting art was a kind of ingenious essence energy art that could deceive the heavens. It focused on the overall situation, and the singularity universe simulated the Big Bang, the birth and operation of the universe. When it came to the overall situation of the universe, Zhou's theories might not be inferior to Purple North Star Lord's. However, the singularity universe gave Zhou a huge framework. There weren't many details and content inside. What Zhou lacked were those details and content. Deducing the general framework from the details and slowly filling in the content after knowing the general framework were two completely different concepts. The former was truly using the limited to calculate the infinite. It expended too much mental strength, but the latter was actually just filling in the blank. The more knowledge he had, the greater the benefits to Zhou. From Purple North Star Lord's point of view, Zhou was deducing from the 28 lunar mansions to the stellar cycle, but in fact, be it the 28 lunar mansions or the stellar cycle, they were all within Zhou's existing framework. From a certain point of view, Zhou was actually standing at the same height as Purple North Star Lord. It wouldn't result in the situation that Purple North Star Lord had imagined. Zhou had learned all the variations of the heavenly cycle-stellar array that Purple North Star Lord had displayed in front of Zhou. He directly applied it to his own system, making the lunar mansion's array stronger and more complicated. At that moment, there were countless stellar vortices circling Zhou as though he was protected by the stars. Although it wasn't as dazzling as Purple North Star Lord's, it wasn't to be underestimated. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Zhou's technique was the minor heavenly cycle-stellar array. Purple North Star Lord couldn't help but frown when he saw that the array formation around Zhou was becoming stronger. The many variations of the heavenly cycle stellar array had been fused into his array formation. Is this guy really human? According to Purple North Star Lord's estimation, even if Zhou had 10 heads, he would explode from the heavenly cycle stellar array's variations. However, Zhou seemed completely fine. He was still constantly attempting to study her heavenly cycle stellar array. The heavenly cycle stellar array's variations are endless. I want to see how much you can remember. I don't believe that you have 100 heads. Even if you really have 100 heads, there will still be a time when they are full. Purple North Star Lord accelerated the heavenly cycle stellar array's changes. However, no matter how the heavenly cycle stellar array changed, Zhou seemed unmoved. He placed all the variations into his own system and found the corresponding positions before turning them into his own. The antelope was fighting desperately. Its fur had been sliced by the starlight in many places. Its body was stained with blood, making it look extremely wretched. Not only was Zhou uninjured, but he also obtained immense benefit. The minor heavenly cycle stellar array around him became stronger. In the vicinity, it could even compete with the major heavenly cycle stellar array. Of course, it only looked prettier. Star vortices revolved around Zhou as though the entire universe was revolving around him. In fact, its might was much weaker than the heavenly cycle stellar array. If Purple North Star Lord had really used all his strength to kill Zhou, the minor heavenly cycle stellar array would have long exploded. However, at that moment, Purple North Star Lord didn't suppress Zhou with all his might. Instead, the way he looked at Zhou turned extremely complicated. Although his strength was still far inferior, the minor heavenly cycle stellar array around Zhou had already made Purple North Star Lord waver. Could it be that this person is really as the antelope said? A once-in-a-lifetime genius? Purple North Star Lord had a different thought. Chapter 1341. The stars in the heavenly cycle were endless. No matter how many variations Zhou could learn, he could only learn a portion of them. It could only be called a minor heavenly cycle and not a major heavenly cycle like Purple Star Lord. The true major heavenly cycle wasn't something that could be learned through learning. It was a realm. After all, Zhou was only at the mythical stage. Even though his realm far exceeded his level, the major heavenly cycle realm wasn't something he could easily touch. Zhou quickly realized that although he had learned many variations, it was only an accumulation of quantity. There were no qualitative changes. No matter how many variations there are in this self-taught minor heavenly cycle array, it can't compare to Purple Star Lord's major heavenly cycle array. This is the difference in level, not the difference in variations. Zhou thought to himself about how he could truly reach Purple Star Lord's level. As Zhou constantly studied and pondered, the antelope couldn't hold on any longer. The wounds on its body increased, and the talisman above its head was almost unable to withstand the starlight's attacks. It was about to shatter. Purple Star, don't force me to risk my life. It won't benefit anyone, the antelope shouted at Purple Star Lord. I really want to know how much your injuries have healed, Purple Star Lord said calmly with an unperturbed expression. Seeing that it couldn't convince Purple Star Lord, the talisman above its head shattered. Swords of stellar light rained down like a storm. The antelope's horns suddenly emitted a bright light. The originally blackish-gray horns became like crystal lamp. Not only were they transparent, but they also emitted intense light. F*****KU. The antelope roared. Before the starlight landed, the two lightning bolts shot out from its two shiny horns collided. It was like a collision of light and electricity, producing intense sparks that enveloped its body. Terrifying swords of starlight rained down densely, blasting the place where the antelope was standing into ruins. The ground was filled with swords of starlight, stacking up together like a mountain of sword light. Boom! An unbelievable power erupted from the mountain of sword beams. In an instant, It shattered the mountain-like swords of stellar light. A slender figure walked out from the shattered sword mountain. A pure aura of light moved along with the figure. Even the great heavenly cycle stellar formation could not suppress the pure power of light. Even amidst the infinite starlight, Zhou Wen's eyes were illuminated by the pure light. When he looked at the light, he saw a man in a snow-white fur coat walk out. His entire body was snow-white and his face was like jade. His eyes were as deep as black gems, and his long black hair was draped over his snow-white fur robe. Mo Shangren was like jade, and his sun was unparalleled in the world. Zhou Wen felt that this sentence should refer to such a person, right? However, when he thought that this person might very well be the antelope, this thought immediately vanished. He couldn't connect the two images together no matter what. The lazy antelope, the rogue antelope, was actually able to transform into such an appearance. It made Zhou Wen feel that the disparity was huge. The man walked amidst the light. All the swords of stellar light that stabbed at him were melted by the pure power of light. It was as though they weren't swords condensed from starlight, but snowflakes. With every step the man took, the power of light on his body grew stronger. Even the starlight that filled the sky seemed to pale in comparison. Purple Star Lord was no longer as relaxed as before. His expression turned extremely solemn as he stared at the man. The purple aura on his body surged crazily, clashing with the man's power of light. For a moment they were evenly matched. From the looks of it, you have recovered quite well. You can actually return to your human form, Purple Star Lord said as he stared at the man. Didn't you want to kill me? Let me see if your amethyst battle killer can kill me or not. The man looked straight at Purple Star Lord in the sky. He appeared unperturbed, but there seemed to be an indescribable power condensing on him. He was like an invisible and peerless blade that could be unsheathed at any moment to destroy everything. Purple Star Lord stared at the man and saw that his aura was stirring. Just as he was about to take a step forward, he suddenly smiled and said, "It was just a joke. You didn't want me to take it seriously, but you took it seriously." Purple Star Lord retracted his cloak, and the starlight dissipated. Forbidden City returned to its original calm. From the looks of it, your injuries are almost healed. Congratulations, Purple Star Lord said to the man. I'm still far from it, but it's enough for me to risk my life. The man stared at Purple Star Lord, but he didn't converge the power of light on him. The moment the heavenly cycle stellar array dissipated, Zhou Wen hurriedly returned to the antelope's side. You and I aren't enemies. There's no need for you to risk your life. Since I know that you can return to your human form, I'm relieved. As Purple Star Lord spoke, he glanced at Zhou Wen and said, You helped me return to Forbidden City and helped me find a contractor. I still remember this favor. Now that you have yet to recover from your injuries, it's not wise for you to overexert yourself. It's best you return early to recuperate. I'll accept this contractor. I'll remember this favor. Zhou Wen cursed inwardly when he heard that. This Purple Star Lord is also a scheming B***TC8. Seeing that he can't defeat the antelope, he actually wants to vent his anger on me. You didn't want me when I gave it to you in the past. Now that you want it, I won't give it to you. Zhou Wen, follow me. Let's see who dares keep you. The antelope snorted coldly and turned to walk towards the entrance of Forbidden City. Zhou Wen was overjoyed as he hurriedly followed. He imagined that the antelope would abandon him, but he never expected it to transform into a human. Even its personality had become a lot more unyielding. It was no longer as beast-like as before. Purple Star Lord watched Zhou Wen follow the antelope to the door with some doubt in his eyes. His lips moved as though he wanted to say something, but he ultimately didn't say anything. He watched the two leave Forbidden City. Old antelope, not bad. I didn't expect you to be so unyielding today. After leaving Forbidden City, Zhou Wen heaved a sigh of relief and patted the antelope's shoulder. However, to his surprise, the antelope rolled forward like a gourd. As its body rolled, it turned from a human into an antelope. Its body was still convulsing as blood constantly seeped out of its mouth. Zhou jumped in fright as he reached out to touch the antelope. However, before his hand could touch it, he felt a wave of heat nearly burn his hand. The antelope's body constantly emitted hot air from its pores. The temperature of the hot air was much higher than water vapor. Even with Zhou physique, he still found it scalding. It was obvious how terrifying the temperature was. As for the antelope, its eyes rolled back as its limbs convulsed. It looked unconscious. Zhou immediately understood that the antelope had been putting on a strong front in Forbidden City. If Purple Star Lord had really attacked, the man and antelope would probably be dead. Zhou hurriedly circulated the ancient Sovereign Sutra and fused with Human Emperor. With intense anger, he punched the antelope again and again. Chapter 1342. The power of Human Emperor could use powerful vitality to heal injuries. Apart from Zhou himself, it could heal the injuries of ordinary people. However, when Zhou's fist struck the antelope's body, he felt as though its body was a huge furnace. His vitality was devoured without a trace. Zhou had never encountered such a situation. The antelope's condition didn't improve, but his vitality was greatly depleted. The light of Human Emperor became weaker and weaker. Zhou had no choice but to feed the Dragon Tiger Pill essence and other resurrection pills to the antelope before continuing to use the power of Human Emperor to inject it into its body. Seeing the pill essences enter the antelope's mouth like jelly beans, Zhou's heart ached so much that it nearly bled. The other pill essences were fine, but the drop rate of the Dragon Tiger Pill essence was just too low. After grinding Pill Furnace Mountain for so long, he had only obtained one. The other mythical pill essences, such as the Dragon Birth Pill, were all fed to the antelope. It was unknown if it was because of the pill or Zhou's power of Human Emperor, but the terrifying temperature in the antelope's body dropped slightly. Its twitching body gradually calmed down. "Stop hitting me. With that bit of vitality of yours, it won't be of much use even if you inject all of it into my body." The antelope regained consciousness and struggled to get up from the ground. Zhou's hand was about to break, and the Human Emperor's halo on him was almost gone. All he could do was stop and dispel his fusion with Human Emperor. "Are you all right?" Zhou asked. "Let's talk when we get back." The antelope looked around and saw that they were still near Forbidden City. Although Purple Star Sovereign was suppressed by Earth's laws and likely didn't dare come out, this matter wasn't in the bag. It was best to stay far away. As the antelope's injuries were too severe, Zhou's vitality was greatly depleted. He was somewhat tired, so he summoned the earthly elephantine beast and brought the antelope with him. "Release the chick," the antelope suddenly said to Zhou after leaving the capital. Zhou released the chick and Yer from the chaos space. The chick glanced at the antelope and automatically landed on its head. Zhou carefully observed for a while and realized that the antelope's temperature was slowly dropping. As for the chick, it became more energetic and its feathers seemed to be much brighter. So the chick can absorb the antelope's heat. It's no wonder the antelope likes to bring the chick along. "Old antelope, I just heard Purple Star Sovereign say that you have recovered your human form. Could it be that you were a human in the past?" Zhou couldn't hold back his questions. The antelope said lazily, "Not really." "What do you mean?" Zhou couldn't understand what she meant. However, the antelope ignored him. It lay on the earth elemental beast's back as though it had fallen asleep. Seeing that the antelope didn't wish to say, Zhou had no choice but to hold back his questions and focus on driving the earth elemental beast. Today's matter is a little strange. It's impossible for the spirit suppression talisman to fall by itself. Under such circumstances, it's impossible for Purple Polaris Starlord to break free on his own, the antelope with its eyes closed suddenly said. From God, from Zhou said, I from divine from, I from long from heaven from long, from the from as from heaven. From one, from as, from one from ping much as he. If Zhou could see it, he would have realized that a blonde girl was standing on the earth elemental beast's back. Furthermore, she was behind him, less than an arm's length away. The blonde girl was naturally Tian. He originally imagined that Purple Star Sovereign could avenge Yana, but to his surprise, he still let them out alive. From the looks of it, I can only avenge Yana myself, thought the golden-haired man, but he didn't immediately take action. This was because the earth elemental beast had always been in an earth elemental state. If Zhou touched her and turned into gold, the earth elemental beast would naturally die as a companion beast. When that happened, Yer and company would be trapped underground. Tian was afraid of hurting her. It won't be too late to take action when they return to the surface. With this thought in mind, Tian continued standing there and waiting. Ever since Zhou helped Hui Haifeng's men get on the rankings, many factions had contacted the Yin family in secret, hoping to get Zhou to help them get on the rankings or to figure out what ability Zhou had used to dodge the Calamity Grade bullet. From their point of view, Zhou was a member of the Yin family. Since they couldn't contact Zhou, contacting Tianzhua was the same. However, Tianzhua couldn't care less about Zhou's matters. He couldn't offend all the factions, so he could only stall for time. This gave Tianzhua a headache. Overseer, people from the League of Defender have come as well. Although they didn't say it explicitly, from the looks of it, they want to know how young Master One dodged the Calamity Grade bullet. And Xing pushed the door open and saw Tianzhua leaning back in his chair, massaging his temples with both hands. Overseer, are you all right? Xing hurriedly asked. I'm fine. Tianzhua lowered his hand and frowned. That fellow only knows how to cause trouble. He always does things that are arduous and unrewarding. He doesn't consider the consequences at all. Xing explained on Zhou's behalf in a low voice. Overseer, actually, this isn't a bad thing. With young Master Wen's battle, the various factions won't dare to touch our Luoyang easily. Even the people from the League of Defender are polite this time. Their attitude is much better than before. What's the use of having a good attitude on the surface? I've long wished I could kill him, Tianzhua said with a cold snort. And Xing thought to himself, if we're talking about the people the League of Defender wants to kill, you have to be ranked ahead of young Master One, right? Young Master One didn't do anything to the League of Defender, but you blew up their Tongtian tower. Aren't you still alive and well? And Xing naturally didn't dare say that out loud. He only whispered, Overseer, you're right. However, with young Master Wen's current strength, even Calamity-grade bullets can't injure him. They shouldn't rashly attack young Master One. And Tianzhua clearly didn't like this topic. He didn't respond to Xing and picked up the documents on the table to read. Overseer, there's already some progress on the Holy Land side. According to what we know, many saints like Xiao Luo have left the Holy Land. They are actively contacting the various factions. I wonder what they're up to, Xing said. Capture one alive, Tianzhua said. We tried, but we failed. After that saint was captured, he chose to commit suicide. He didn't give us a chance to question him, Xing said in distress. Have you found out how those saints enter and exit the Holy Land? Tianzhua asked again. I've checked. They also use the teleportation array. However, when humans pass through the teleportation array, it's still the same as before. There's a level restriction. Mythical creatures can't even pass, much less the terror grade. However, those saints don't have such restrictions. They can enter and exit the teleportation array at will, Xing said. And Tianzhua pondered for a moment before suddenly looking at Xing and asking, Does anyone else know about that saint's suicide? Xing was alarmed when he heard that. Overseer, Don't tell me you want to disguise yourself as that saint to enter the Holy Land? I can give it a try, Tianzhua said. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. Furthermore, if you leave, what will happen to Luoyang? And Sheng immediately objected. There's not only an Tianzhua in Luoyang, is there? And Tianzhua said indifferently. Chapter 1343. I want to eat this, and this. When they passed by a city, they were already very far from the capital. Zhouwen got everyone to come out and rest for a while before taking Yer to buy some snacks. As there had been too many things recently, he didn't have much time to accompany Yer. He originally imagined that his trip to the capital would be relatively relaxing. He could take Yer around and relax, but to his surprise, something like this happened. After Zhouwen and company came out of Earth Escape, Tian was about to attack Zhouwen, but she was dragged away by Yer to buy all sorts of snacks. Tian couldn't help but be stunned as she watched Yer eat cotton candy and ice cream. It looks delicious. Tian couldn't help but gulp when she saw Yer constantly trying all sorts of delicacies as though every one of them was delicious. Zhouwen followed behind Yer, carrying bags of all sizes. They were all snacks for Yer. From the looks of it, no matter how bad a person is, there are times when they can be good. When Tian saw that Zhouwen would buy anything for Yer without any hesitation, she thought to herself, if he dies now, how sad will that young lady be? I'll wait for him to finish buying before ending his sinful life. I want that. Yer came to a chocolate shop and pointed at a box of chocolate. Zhouwen traced Yer's finger and realized that the box of chocolates was placed in a very prominent spot. Furthermore, there was a special display stand. With the lighting, the exquisite chocolate box looked even more eye-catching. It was no wonder Yer had taken a fancy to it at a glance. Please help me take that box of chocolates. Zhouwen saw that there was no price on the chocolate box, but it was obvious that it was expensive. However, none of this was important. Money no longer meant much to Zhouwen. Sir, I'm really sorry. I can't sell you that box of chocolates for the time being, the shop assistant said politely. Why? Zhouwen asked in puzzlement when he heard the hidden meaning in the shop assistant's words. The shop assistant explained, Sir, it's like this. That box of chocolates was personally made by our boss, and it's also his proudest work. It's the treasure of the store. We can only make one box every month, but because it's so delicious, it's very popular, so many people want to buy it. However, we can only make one box of chocolates a month. Many people ask their friends for help, hoping that the boss will sell them the chocolate. There are too many people begging, and the boss can't do anything about it. He really can't make that many, so our boss set a rule. That box of chocolates can only be sold to people who know the most about chocolate. What do you mean by knowing chocolate the best? Zhouwen really didn't understand how to differentiate between knowing chocolate and not knowing chocolate. When the employee heard that, he knew that he didn't know anything about chocolate. However, he still said politely, It's actually very simple. Every time the chocolate is created, the boss will set up 3 questions. Those who can answer all 3 questions correctly are qualified to receive that box of chocolate for free. Is there such a good thing? What are the 3 questions? Zhouwen thought to himself, with my abilities, it shouldn't be difficult for me to pass the test and obtain that box of chocolates. Furthermore, it's free. The employee pointed at the 3 boxes beside him and said, There are 3 different types of chocolates in those 3 boxes. As long as you can eat the specific ingredients of the 3 types of chocolates, you can obtain the treasure of the store, the chocolate, for free. Zhouwen was taken aback and immediately felt a little stumped. If he had to guess what brand and type of chocolate was in the box, he could still guess it accurately even if it was locked in a safe. However, Zhouwen had no choice as to what ingredients were in the chocolate. He could see what was in the chocolate, but he didn't know the names of the ingredient. Let me try. Yer was very interested in chocolate. She walked over and reached out to take it. Wait a minute. The employee hurriedly said, when eating chocolate you need to blindfold your eyes. Furthermore, each of these 3 types of chocolates is worth 300 to 400 yuan. Eating one will be 350. If you eat all 3, even if it's a little cheaper, rounding it up to 1,000 yuan. Didn't you say that it's free if you can eat it? Zhou asked. The treasure of the store is free, but the chocolate used for the test isn't free. Regardless of whether you can eat it or not, you have to pay. If you don't think it's suitable, you don't have to try, the employee said. Zhou cursed the unscrupulous merchant inwardly. Although they said they were giving away the treasure of the store for free, they were actually taking the opportunity to sell ordinary chocolate. It was just a bit of money, so Zhou didn't care. Just as he was about to pay for Ye to give it a try, he suddenly heard a sweet voice behind him. I want to give it a try. Zhou found the voice familiar and was alarmed. He turned his head and indeed, it was the blonde girl he had previously encountered. Previously, the blonde girl had wanted to scam him, but now that he saw her here, Zhou immediately had many thoughts. This place is more than 500 kilometers away from the capital. It's definitely not a coincidence to meet her here. What does she want? Zhou stared at the blonde girl, but he couldn't see through her. No matter how he looked at her, she looked like an ordinary person who had never cultivated. Tian was clearly prepared this time. She already knew what money was. She took out a 1,000 yuan note and handed it to the employee. Wait a minute. There should be a first come, first served rule, right? We came first. Even if we want to try, we should be the first to try, Ye said. You only arrived at the store first, but you didn't pay. I paid first, so of course I have to try first. Tian's logic was very clear. In fact, after following Zhou and Ye for so long, she was already drooling. She had swallowed a lot of saliva, and when she heard that the box of chocolates was so delicious, she couldn't help but take the initiative to appear and eat the box of chocolates. That's not right. You are still serving us. You shouldn't take her money at this time, right? Ye asked the employee. The employee was in a dilemma. He felt that what Tian and Ye said made sense and seemed to be right. He couldn't find a reason to retort. Seeing that Tian and Ye weren't willing to back down, the employee coughed lightly and said, in the past few years, many people have come to try every month, but less than 1 in 100 people can truly take away the cornerstone treasure. It's very difficult. Why don't you try one by one? As he spoke, he glanced at Ye. Seeing that she had no intention of backing down, he looked at Tian. Tian also stood there motionless, her eyes equally determined. The employee had no choice but to cast a pleading look at Zhou. Zhou ignored him. All his attention was on Tian. I clearly remember that this Tian is an existence that can pass through calamity-grade bullet. Since both of you want the treasure of my shop, let's have a chocolate contest. Whoever wins will get the treasure of my shop. Of course, it's also possible that both of you can't pass and be eliminated. It won't be that easy to take my cornerstone treasure, a person said as he walked out of a room in the store. Chapter 1344. The person who came out was a fatty who was almost as fat as a ball. He wore a white uniform and a white hat. At first glance, he looked like a chef, but on closer inspection, he was a little different. This is our boss, Mr. Gao Dawei, the employee introduced. How do you want to compete? Ye asked Gao Dawei. I've recently developed a few types of chocolate. Try them together. Whoever can taste what ingredients are used will win if they guess correctly. If they don't guess correctly, they will be eliminated. Seeing Tian and Ye staring at him, Gao Dawei hurriedly explained, Don't worry. This trial is completely free. Regardless of who wins or loses, you don't need to pay a single cent. That's more like it. What if both of them get it right? Ye asked. It's not that easy. I know the chocolate I make. Even I might not be able to taste a few ingredients if I hadn't eaten them in advance, Gao Dawei said. Don't worry and eat. I reckon it'll be difficult for any of you to guess correctly." With that said, Gao Dawei entered the room at the back. Soon, he came out with a plate of chocolate. Zhou usually didn't like to eat snacks. His impression of chocolate was still stuck on a black square board. However, the plate of chocolate that Gao Dawei had picked was different from the chocolate in Zhou Wen's impression. There were chocolates in the shape of a puppy, a gentleman playing the piano, and a chocolate that seemed to have a layer of snow on it. They looked very exquisite. Yer and Tiantian's gazes were also attracted by the strangely shaped chocolates. They revealed eager expressions as though they wanted to try them. Gao Dawei was very pleased with the trio's reaction. He said smugly, "To be absolutely fair, you have to try the same type of chocolate at the same time. Then, write your answers on a piece of paper and hand it to me. I'll judge." Gao Dawei got the employee to bring him paper, a pen, and a knife that was specially used to cut chocolate. "The first chocolate, I call it alpine honey. Please try it." Gao Dawei personally cut 2 pieces from the spherical chocolate that had snow on it and placed them on a small plate before handing them to and Tiantian. Zhou looked at the spot where it was cut. There was a white substance flowing out of it that looked like ice cream. And Tiantian tasted it and found it delicious. In a few moments they finished it. Then, the 2 of them seemed to have an answer. They looked at each other before turning their heads. With their backs facing each other, they found a table and wrote down their answers. Almost at the same time, he finished writing the answer and handed it to Gao Dawei. Gao Dawei carefully looked at their answers and nodded. "Not bad, both of you got it right." Other than the cocoa and sugar from the chocolate itself, alpine honey also uses condensed milk, honey, hazelnuts, ice cream, and even candied dates, which are only used in small amounts. Not bad, it seems like both of you have a keen sense of taste. But don't be too proud. This is only the simplest and most basic. Most people will be able to figure it out. The later ones will be more difficult, and it won't be so easy to guess. Seeing that Yer and Tiantian didn't respond, Gao Dawei had no choice but to cough softly. He chose another clever method and said, "This chocolate is called Nature's Pianist. It's my latest invention that I'm proud of. Try it." Zhou sized up the chocolate curiously. The pianist, the stool, and the piano formed an exquisite piece of art. It made people unable to bear eating it. It was hard to imagine that such exquisite chocolate was made by a plump man like Gao Dawei. After the previous round, Zhou gained a little understanding of chocolate. The parts of the gown, stool, and piano were likely ordinary chocolate. The human skin and the piano's white keys were likely made from milk products. Zhou also knew that it definitely wasn't that simple. It was impossible for Gao Dawei to give such a simple question. Zhou twitched his nose and seemed to smell something familiar. He carefully looked at the dark chocolate and immediately made a discovery. There seems to be something mixed in the dark parts. Zhou only knew that there was something mixed in, but he didn't know what it was. Although the smell was a little familiar, he couldn't remember where he had eaten it. Yer and Tiantian ate the chocolate that Gao Dawei had cut off. Their faces revealed satisfied and blissful expressions. It was obvious that the chocolate tasted great. This time, Tiantian immediately wrote the answer, but Yer hesitated. Zhou wasn't worried that Yer would lose. He was only wondering what Tiantian was up to. After lowering her head and thinking for a while, Yer finally wrote down her answer. As for Tiantian, she had already handed the answer to Gao Dawei. When Gao Dawei saw their answers, a look of surprise appeared on his face. The taste of cream and butter is great, but it's very easy to mask other flavors. The average person's taste buds are assaulted by the taste of chocolate and cream at the same time. Coupled with the stimulation of rum and the cocoa powder on the outer layer, it forms a complex layered feeling. It's very complicated. It's very difficult to discover the hint of black truffle hidden in it. Most people know that there is no black truffle in the black truffle chocolate, but I did the opposite and deliberately added a small amount of black truffle in it. I didn't expect you to still be able to taste it. You really have a good sense of taste. Only then did Zhou recall that the familiar taste was black truffle. Once, Ouyang had taken him out for a meal, and there were a few pieces of black truffle. Ouyang had even specially given them to Zhou to taste and told him that they were black truffles. However, Zhou's mind wasn't on eating back then. He was only thinking about how to grind dungeons when he returned, so his memories were too blurry. Furthermore, he had eaten too little. There were only a few thin pieces, so he almost didn't remember. It won't be easy for you to guess the next chocolate. Gao Dawei seemed very confident as he cut open the puppy-shaped chocolate. He was rather careful when he cut it, as though he was trying his best to control the cut. Then, he handed the 2 pieces of chocolate to Yer and Tiantian. Due to the previous 2 experiences, Yer and Tiantian looked forward to the next piece of chocolate. The moment they received it, they couldn't wait to bite into it. However, after the 2 of them bit into it and chewed twice, their expressions changed. They chewed slower and slower. Almost at the same time, they spat out the chocolate they had eaten. Yer, are you alright? Although Zhou didn't eat it, he knew that something was wrong with the chocolate from the smell. He couldn't help but stare at Gao Dawei, prepared to attack at any moment. Chapter 1345. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. There's no poison in my chocolate. I just added a little stinky tofu. Gao Dawei immediately waved his hand and explained when he saw Zhou and company's unfriendly expressions. Zhou sniffed carefully and realized that the stench was really like the stinky tofu he had smelled on the streets when he was young. There's stinky tofu in the chocolate. Are you deliberately messing with us? Zhou expression didn't improve because of Gao Dawei's explanation. Gao Dawei shook his head repeatedly and said seriously, "How is that possible? I'm a professional chocolatier. I definitely won't use my own work as a prank. Since the bitterness of cocoa powder can turn into a lingering fragrance, the stench of stinky tofu is the same. I wondered if I could mix these 2 extreme flavors together. Perhaps I could create a new unique flavor." Seeing Yer and Tiantian's gazes, Gao Dawei hurriedly said, "Unfortunately, I failed. Combining these 2 flavors isn't as easy as I thought. However, that's how experiments are. If I could succeed in one try, it wouldn't be called an experiment." Zhou looked at Gao Dawei's serious expression and didn't seem like he was lying. Furthermore, there was no need to prank them. Besides, they hadn't been in the shop for long, so it was impossible for Gao Dawei to immediately create such a thing to prank them. Zhou sniffed the smell and looked at the puppy's chocolate appearance. He originally thought that the puppy was rather cute, but now, he found it odd. Why does it feel like? Zhou didn't dare continue thinking. With this encounter, Yer and Tiantian's expressions turned nasty. They looked at the remaining 2 pieces of chocolate and hesitated if they should eat them. Who knew what strange chocolate Gao Dawei would come up with? The unknown was the most terrifying. Even if they could see what was inside the chocolate, they might not know what it was or what taste it would have without eating it. Some subtle ingredients still needed to be distinguished by taste. If Gao Dawei came up with some spicy chocolate that was even more overboard, there might be something even more terrifying. Yer and Tiantian wanted to retreat, but after exchanging looks, they immediately raised their heads. None of them wanted to admit defeat. "Well, although it tastes terrible, you still need to write down what ingredients were used in it. Only then will I know if you can advance to the next round," Gao Dawei said carefully. Yer and Tiantian quickly wrote the answer. Although they spat it out after chewing a few times, they still wrote correctly. Apart from the stinky tofu, Gao Dawei had also added durian. This guy is really a pervert. No wonder he said he didn't want money from the start. If he wanted money, he would probably be beaten to death. Zhou was rendered speechless. A normal chocolatier definitely wouldn't do what he did unless there was something wrong with their brains. In the following matches, although Ye-er and Tian resisted the urge to withdraw and continued competing for the sake of their reputation, they no longer had the anticipation they had before. Now that they were asked to eat Gao Daoi's chocolate, it felt like they were going to the execution ground. Thankfully, there wasn't much of a problem with the fourth piece of chocolate. It was a type of liquor core chocolate, but Gao Dawei had used a few special liquors to concoct it. He had to be able to taste them. Zhou originally imagined that Ye-er would definitely answer incorrectly this time. Although Ye-er ate a lot of snacks, Zhou never allowed her to drink alcohol. Ye-er probably couldn't even tell red wine from white wine, so it was indeed impossible for her to say what kind of alcohol was inside. To Zhou surprise, not only did Tian answer correctly, but Ye-er also answered correctly. Did Ye-er drink behind my back? Furthermore, she's an alcoholic? Otherwise, how would she know more than 10 types of alcohol that I've never heard of? She can even taste them. That's too strange. Zhou frowned inwardly. When it came to the last piece of chocolate, Gao Dawei perked up. I never expected your sense of smell to be so sensitive. However, it's impossible for you to taste what the last piece of chocolate is made of. It's best you give up as soon as possible. Can we begin? Ye-er asked expressionlessly. Ever since she ate the puppy chocolate, she didn't have any good feelings for Gao Dawei. It was the same for Tian. She snapped, Can you hurry up? Don't be anxious. I'll begin now. Gao Dawei pointed at the last piece of chocolate and said, This is a piece of work I'm especially proud of recently. It's called Snow White. Zhou looked at it and saw that it was ordinary white chocolate. However, it was made to look like a woman in a princess dress. Apart from looking good, there didn't seem to be anything special about it. Zhou directly penetrated the interior of the white chocolate and realized that it was still white chocolate. There were no other fillings. Gao Dawei cut 2 pieces for Ye-er and Tian before asking Zhou, Do you want to try it too? This piece should be the best among the 5 pieces of chocolate. All right. Zhou looked at Gao Dawei and nodded slightly. Gao Dawei cut a piece and handed it to Zhou. Zhou pinched it and threw it into his mouth, swallowing it in one gulp. What a waste. You should taste it properly. This taste is unique in this world. Apart from me, no one can make chocolate with such taste, Gao Dawei said regretfully. Isn't it just ordinary white chocolate? What's so special about it? Zhou asked. You don't know chocolate at all. Giving you that piece of chocolate is like feeding ginseng fruit to Pigsy. It's a waste. Gao Dawei stood up straight and puffed up his stomach. He said smugly, however, there's nothing we can do about it being a waste. It's better than trouble. What do you mean? Zhou asked Gao Dawei. Plop. Before Gao Dawei could say a word, Tian fell to the ground as though she had fainted. Although she was still breathing, she was motionless. Who are you? Zhou's expression changed slightly as he sized up Gao Dawei. I'm me, Gao Dawei, a saint of the Sun Temple. I originally wanted to take a break before heading to Luoyang to deal with you, but I never expected you to deliver yourself to me. It saves me a lot of trouble, Gao Dawei answered with a smile. What's with the chocolate? Zhou asked again. Didn't I tell you that the chocolate is called Snow White? Haven't you heard the story of Snow White? After eating my chocolate, all of you will sleep forever, Gao Dawei said with a smile. Gao Dawei said with a smile, You don't have to force yourself anymore. Although your bodies are much stronger than ordinary people, and you can stand a little longer, you will eventually fall down. Why do you have to work so hard? Chapter 1346. Why are you here? I clearly saw you eat it. Gao Dawei's expression changed slightly. What you see might not be the truth, Zhou said indifferently. Gao Dawei smiled again in the blink of an eye. He pointed at Ye-er and said, Even if you can take out the chocolate, she ate chocolate. Power. Before Gao Dawei could finish his sentence, he saw Zhou stretch out his other hand. There was another piece of chocolate there. It was the one that had just put in her mouth. Zhou was becoming more and more proficient at using sky stealing. Furthermore, in the past, he could only make a mark before exchanging. Now that he had the minor heavenly cycle star array, there was no need to go through so much trouble. As long as it was within the range of the minor heavenly cycle star array, Zhou could directly exchange. When did you realize that there was something wrong with me? Gao Dawei immediately knew that he had long been exposed. Otherwise, Zhou wouldn't have taken away Ye-er's chocolate in advance. It wasn't long. It was when you gave me Snow White. Zhou was telling the truth. Gao Dawei had done everything too naturally with almost no flaws. In order to lower Zhou and company's guard, he had even used the stinky chocolate move in advance. If it were any ordinary person, they would feel that it was a false alarm. They would have a period of mental relaxation, making it easier for them to succeed. Gao Dawei hadn't done anything wrong. Everything was fine and natural. However, when he gave Zhou the chocolate, he was too eager to get Zhou to accept the power of power. Although he didn't show it on the surface, he really wanted Zhou to accept it. Therefore, when Zhou heard his thoughts, Zhou confirmed that there was something wrong with him. Of course, even if he hadn't heard his thoughts, Zhou didn't plan on letting Ye eat the last piece of chocolate. When he saw the stinky chocolate, Zhou had already felt that something was amiss, but he didn't have any concrete evidence. Indeed, I was greedy. I shouldn't have given you the chocolate. I should have known that you, Zhou, wouldn't be killed so easily by me. Gao Dawei sighed. Without waiting for Zhou to say anything, Gao Dawei suddenly leaped up and grabbed the unconscious Tiantian. Without any hesitation, Zhou unsheathed his bamboo blade and slashed at Gao Dawei's arm, forcing him to retreat. Zhou's strike wasn't to save Tiantian, but to save Gao Dawei. It wasn't easy for him to encounter a saint, so Zhou naturally wanted to capture him alive. He hoped to obtain some information from him. It would be even better if he could obtain news of the former principal. As for Tiantian's terror, Zhou had seen it with his own eyes. The calamity-grade bullets that surrounded him failed to injure Tiantian. Zhou refused to believe that a piece of Gao Wei's chocolate could take down Tiantian. He was afraid that Gao Dawei would be killed by Tiantian with this palm strike. At that time, he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. However, Zhou didn't know that his strike had increased Tiantian's impression of him. She thought to herself, this person isn't too bad. He treats that young lady well and is willing to save me. Sometimes, being at such a high level was also a kind of trouble. It was like an ancient emperor who heard that the refugees had no rice to eat and many of them had starved to death, so he asked them why they didn't eat meat. In Tiantian's eyes, this was a matter of course, but she didn't know that she had already exposed her terrifying strength because of this matter of course. Of course, Tiantian was even more terrifying than Zhou imagined. The bamboo blade in Zhou's hand kept slashing. Gao Dawei's fat body was astonishingly fast. He was like the legendary flying pig. When he rushed into the air, the chef's attire on his body had already turned into a set of chocolate armor that enveloped his body. The bamboo blade went against the sky and slashed at Gao Dawei again. Gao Dawei actually used his palm that was wrapped in chocolate to grab the bamboo blade. The moment the bamboo blade touched Gao Dawei, the hard blade turned into chocolate juice and fell to the ground. If Zhou hadn't retracted his saber fast enough, the entire bamboo blade would have turned into melted chocolate. Even if he had retracted his saber fast enough, a lot of the blade that had turned into chocolate had already fallen off, making the bamboo blade's blade look like a saw. Zhou's expression changed slightly. This was the first time the bamboo blade had been with him for so long that it had been damaged so badly. He had previously used the bamboo blade to fight a terrorgrade creature, but it wasn't this badly damaged. Gao Dawei's figure rapidly jumped. Wherever his body touched, be it the wall or the table or chair, it would turn into chocolate. It was the kind that was melting into juice. Zhou put away the bamboo blade. This blade had been with him for so long, so he had some feelings for it. He didn't want it to be destroyed just like that. Zhou Wen's figure flashed as he dodged Gao Douei's attacks again and again. At the same time, he transformed his aura into a sword and used it to attack Gao Douei's vital spots. As he didn't dare touch his body, he could only use techniques like sword aura. Gao Douei was at the terror grade just like Xiao Chou. His movement techniques and means weren't inferior. Furthermore, with his figure, his movement techniques were unexpectedly good. Zhou Wen originally imagined that only saints who came from the Trajectory Holy Temple would be good at movement technique. He never expected that Gao Douei, who came from the Sun Holy Temple, was also good at movement technique. Furthermore, it was a completely different style from the Trajectory Holy Temple. Zhou Wen used his finger as a sword and wantonly brandished his sword aura, forcing Gao Douei to retreat. Gao Douei wanted to rush out of the shop, but he realized that Zhou Wen's sword aura seemed casual, but it sealed off all his paths of advance and retreat. He couldn't attack or even escape. The more Gao Douei fought, the more uncomfortable he felt. He felt as though he had been locked in a cage filled with metal spikes. He couldn't move at all. Gao Douei, I think you're a little different from the other saints. Why don't we make a deal? Answer a few questions of mine and I'll guarantee that you can leave safely, Zhou Wen said. What do you want to know? Gao Douei's eyes shimmered. Clearly, he wanted to stall for time. There's no rush. We'll talk slowly when you hide, Zhou Wen said calmly. Gao Douei was first taken aback before he laughed angrily. Zhou Wen, you're indeed powerful, but if you think you can defeat me, you're gravely mistaken. You can dodge a calamity-grade bullet, but you might not be able to dodge this strike of mine. With that said, Gao Douei's body suddenly turned into a coffee-colored liquid like chocolate under high temperature. Like a swamp monster or a liquid devil, he transformed into a tornado that swept towards Zhou Wen. Clearly, Gao Douei knew very well that a single target attack was useless against Zhou Wen. Only an area of effect attack could hit him. As long as Zhou Wen's body was stained with a drop of chocolate liquid, he could turn his entire body into chocolate. Chapter 1347. Seeing that the tornado-like chocolate liquid had already arrived in front of Zhou Wen, he had no intention of retreating. He used his finger as a sword and stabbed forward. Gao Douei didn't know what Zhou Wen's stab was for. Having completely transformed into a chocolate devil, he wasn't afraid of physical attacks at all. Although the sword beams weren't considered physical attacks, the effects weren't much weaker. However, in the next second, Gao Douei was alarmed to discover that with Zhou Wen's finger, invisible sword beams appeared around Zhou Wen's body at high speeds. The invisible sword beams were innumerable as they enveloped Zhou Wen. The chocolate liquid that Gao Douei had transformed into collided with the terrifying sword beam vortex. After the two tornado-like forces collided, the chocolate liquid tornado was sucked in by the sword beam vortex. The invisible sword beam vortex seemed to be dyed with a layer of chocolate. Gao Douei wanted to escape from the sword beam vortex, but he realized that he couldn't break free. There was an extremely strong suction force in the vortex. No matter how he struggled, he was still firmly sucked in. Furthermore, countless sword beams spun and sliced, constantly splitting the chocolate liquid into smaller and smaller states. Gao Douei was alarmed. Although the chocolate devil wasn't afraid of physical attacks, there was a limit to it. If the chocolate liquid couldn't even maintain its most basic particle state, he would still be killed. The typical Terragrade probably didn't have such a strong crushing ability. Ordinary slicing attacks didn't have much effect on the chocolate devil form. Even if a portion of the chocolate could be sliced into basic particles, it wouldn't have much of an effect on the whole. The chocolate devil's true nemesis was the power of ice. Zhou Wen clearly wasn't proficient in ice, so Gao Douei wasn't too worried in the beginning. However, he suddenly realized that the invisible sword beams around Zhou Wen were too terrifying. They constantly sliced the chocolate liquid until it was about to be sliced into basic particles. Gao Dawei had never seen such a sick sword beam. How could he know that Zhou Wen wasn't using pure sword beams, but the minor heavenly cycle-stellar array? Sword beams were only the foundation of the minor heavenly cycle-stellar array. Zhou Wen could be considered to be blessed by nature. The minor heavenly cycle-stellar array was very strong, but it also needed a sufficient amount of the power of the stars or sword qi as a foundation. The stronger the foundation, the stronger the array formation. If it were an ordinary person, even if they were at the Terra grade, they had limited essence energy. It was impossible for them to condense too much sword qi in a short period of time as a foundation. Or perhaps because their essence energy was too dispersed, the condensed sword qi was too weak. It would definitely greatly weaken the minor heavenly cycle-stellar array's strength. However, Zhou Wen's primordial energy was nearly limitless. The minor heavenly cycle-stellar array he formed allowed every sword qi to match a full-powered strike from someone at the same level. The sword array he formed was enough to crush anyone at the same level. Although Chocolate Devil was very strong, he could only be crushed when faced with thousands of Terragrade sword qi. No. Impossible. Gao Dawei was horrified to discover that the chocolate liquid that he had turned into had begun to evaporate under the sword qi's attack. Stop. What do you want to ask? I'll tell you everything. Gao Dawei screamed. Zhou Wen's finger condensed an invisible tornado-like sword qi in the air like a star in the night sky. Only then did Gao Dawei dare to descend to the ground and return to his human form. He saw that the chocolate armor on his body had been shattered in many places. Even Gao Dawei's body was covered in wounds, and he was bleeding profusely. Outside Gao Dawei's body, countless sword qi revolved around him like a ball, wrapping around him. The tips of the swords were all aimed at his body. I'm a very impatient person, so it's best you cherish this opportunity. Don't answer an answer that makes me unhappy. You only have one chance. Zhou Wen paused before immediately asking, Do you know a person named Xiao? I know there's such a person, but I'm not familiar with him. I only know that he's a saint from the Trajectory Holy Temple, Gao Dawei said. How many saints like Xiao are there in the Trajectory Holy Temple? Zhou Wen asked. I'm from the Sun Holy Temple. I don't know much about the Trajectory Holy Temple. From what I know, the Trajectory Holy Temple has 13 to 14 saints, Gao Dawei answered without any hesitation. Where do those saints come from? Zhou Wen continued asking. Gao Dawei hesitated for a moment and didn't answer immediately. Gao Dawei let out a tragic cry as one of his arms was chopped off. Furthermore, it was instantly minced into a bloody mist by the invisible sword qi before being vaporized. An orphanage. We all came from an orphanage, Gao Dawei shouted. It'll be your head next time. Zhou Wen continued asking coldly, which orphanage? I don't know what place it is either. I was too young back then. I only know that it's an orphanage built in a valley. There are many orphans there, and I've seen many saints I know in the orphanage. However, the orphanage is also divided into several different areas. They are separated from each other. I don't know Xiao. Perhaps he's an orphan from another area, or perhaps he's relatively young and came later than me. However, I'm certain that he came from an orphanage. Gao Dawei didn't dare hesitate as he finished speaking in one breath. Oh, since you haven't seen him before, how are you so sure that he came from an orphanage? Zhou Wen looked at Gao Dawei with interest. That's hard to explain. People who come out of an orphanage have a special smell. Others might not be able to tell, but I can tell at a glance. Is smell something to look at? Zhou Wen snorted coldly. Gao Dawei hurriedly explained, I didn't make it clear. Smell is just a metaphor. It means that people who come out of an orphanage have a special, how do I describe it, bearing? Zhou Wen continued. Yes, bearing or something. It's that kind of smell. It's just like how soldiers have the smell of soldiers. Even if they wear home clothes, you can tell at a glance that they have been in the army. People who come out of an orphanage have a special smell. Ordinary people might not be able to tell, but I can tell that they are the same kind, Gao Dawei explained. Zhou thought to himself, it seems like there's a high chance that these saints are orphans groomed by Duguqianqiu. After some thought, Zhou asked, which temple is Professor Ouyang in? Which Professor Ouyang? Gao Dawei was taken aback. How many Professor Ouyangs are there in the Holy Land? Zhou asked. 2 or 3, Gao Dawei answered after some thought. Then tell me. Zhou was delighted. After investigating for so long, it looked like he was finally getting close to the truth. Chapter 1348. Then, let's start with Professor Ouyang Ting. Gao Dawei's words immediately attracted Zhou Wen's attention as his pupils unconsciously constricted. As Gao Dawei spoke, he lowered his head as though he was deep in thought. As Zhou Wen focused and listened, he suddenly saw Gao Dawei's body transform into the chocolate devil's liquefied state again before seeping into the ground like water. In an instant, the chocolate devil crawled out of the ground again. However, the spot where he crawled out was already where Zhou Wen was standing. The chocolate liquid instantly enveloped Zhou Wen's shoes and legs and rapidly spread upward. Zhou Wen's shoes and clothes had already turned into chocolate as they constantly dripped down. You are still too inexperienced to fight me. The chocolate enveloped most of Zhou Wen's body as Gao Dawei's smug laughter sounded from the boiling chocolate liquid. Is that so? Zhou Wen's indifferent voice suddenly sounded, causing Gao Dawei's smug laughter to stop. In the next second, the chocolate that enveloped Zhou Wen's body gathered towards Zhou Wen's hand like dust being sucked away by a vacuum cleaner, instantly vanishing without a trace. Zhou Wen's fingers moved slightly as he closed an exquisite candy box in his hand. The sweet candy box that had sucked away Gao Dawei was actually the sweet candy box. Previously, Zhou Wen had studied the candy box for a long time and realized that it was an interspatial item. However, this interspatial item could only store sweets like candy. Apart from that, nothing could be stored inside. Later, when Zhou Wen learned spatial skills, he wondered if he could modify the candy box. If he could modify it to the point where it could store anything, he would have another piece of spatial equipment. Therefore, he took the candy box back to study it, but the outcome wasn't satisfactory. He didn't know what methods the person who created the candy box had used. No matter what spatial skill Zhou Wen used on the candy box, it was difficult to affect its characteristic of only being able to store candy. At most, it could suck in candy from the outside world. Apart from that, there was nothing special about it. Zhou Wen originally believed that the candy box was useless, but after seeing Gao Dawei's chocolate devil form, he thought of the candy box. Killing a person like Gao Dawei wouldn't affect the Holy Land much, but if he could dig out more of the Holy Land's secrets from him, it would be of great help to Zhou Wen. Therefore, Zhou Wen had always wanted to keep Gao Dawei alive and not kill him. Zhou Wen had already expected Gao Wei's sudden attack. He took the opportunity to suck him into the candy box. After all, the candy box could only suck the candy in after coming into contact with it. It couldn't be swallowed from afar. After putting away Gao Dawei and closing the candy box, Zhou Wen turned to look at Tian. Tian had been pretending to be unconscious, but when she saw Zhou Wen take out the candy box, she was alarmed. The candy box had been lost the last time she came to Earth. She couldn't find it no matter how hard she tried, so she never expected it to be in Zhou Wen's hands. The last time I came to Earth, he wasn't even born yet. He couldn't have stolen it, so where did he get it from? Tian felt that she needed to figure out the problem, so she decided to punish Zhou Wen a little later. She needed to figure out the origins of the candy box first. When he comes to save me later, I can take the opportunity to get close to him and figure out where the candy box came from. But if he comes to save me, he will touch my body and immediately turn into gold. But if I don't let him touch me, how can I get close to him? Tian was in a dilemma as countless thoughts flashed through her mind. She was thinking about how she could prevent Zhou from touching her when he came to save her, while also taking the opportunity to approach him. He's here. What should I do? He's coming. Should I wake up by myself? Tian felt Zhou look over and immediately tensed up. She still hadn't thought of a way to wake up naturally and approach Zhou. However, to her surprise, Tian was stunned the next second. Zhou turned around and picked up Yer beside him. He turned around and teleported away. This is definitely a scumbag. Baddie. He has to be punished. Tian got up from the ground and looked in the direction Zhou had left. Her eyes were about to spit fire. If it wasn't for the fact that she wanted to figure out where the candy box came from, she wanted to touch Zhou and turn him into gold. Zhou took Yer to the resting antelope and chick and told them about his encounter with Tian. The antelope also felt that Tian was definitely not simple and suggested that Zhou run immediately. Zhou had the same thoughts. He took the antelope and chick with him. He didn't immediately return to Luoyang. Instead, he went to several places, hoping to shake off Tian. Zhou and the antelope were on high alert, but they heaved a sigh of relief when they didn't see Tian chasing after them. Unbeknownst to them, Tian had been following Zhou the entire time. At that moment, she was sitting on the earth elemental beast's back, almost sitting right next to him. Unfortunately, they couldn't see Tian. They constantly scanned their surroundings using all sorts of means, but they didn't find her. They imagined that she hadn't followed them. After rushing back to Luoyang, Zhou felt physically and mentally exhausted. He originally imagined that he could reap some benefits on this trip, but to his surprise, not only was he almost killed by Purple Star Lord, but he had also provoked a blonde girl who had appeared out of nowhere. I don't plan on going out for the time being. Don't call me if you go to dimensional zones again, Zhou said to the antelope. How dare I call you? Which time didn't something happen when I went out with you? This time, I nearly lost my life. Do you think I'll call you again? The antelope said unhappily. Ahem, it was purely an accident. Get some rest. If there's anything you need, inform me. I'll head back first. Zhou hurriedly left the antelope's room. He really couldn't explain the matter. Just as Zhou left the room, he saw Anxing standing not far away as though he had been waiting for him. Young Master One, do you have time to chat? Anxing came over and said. What's the matter? Zhou saw that Anxing's expression was amiss. Anxing nodded. Let's talk in the overseer's study. It's not convenient to talk here. There's no need to go anywhere, right? Zhou frowned. Don't worry. The overseer isn't around, Anxing said meaningfully. Zhou was slightly taken aback. Anxing's statement that the overseer wasn't around was somewhat subtle. Zhou knew that something had definitely happened, so he didn't say anything else and followed Anxing to Tianzua's study. This was where Tianzua usually worked. There were many special designs, so it wasn't easy to eavesdrop on the people inside, be it using primordial energy skills or advanced technology. The overseer has left Luoyang. It might take some time before he returns. The overseer hopes that you will be in charge of the overseer's office while he's not around, Anxing said. Chapter 1349. He's an overseer. Why isn't he presiding over the overseer's office? Why does he run outside all day? Zhou frowned. He had no interest in taking charge of Luoyang. Even if Tianzua really made him an overseer and gave Luoyang to him, Zhou would find it troublesome. Furthermore, he was really unwilling to help him guard Luoyang. Anxing said with a heavy expression, Overseer has entered the Holy Land. Entered the Holy Land? Isn't he already at the Terror Grade? How did he enter the Holy Land? Zhou was immediately alarmed as he hurriedly asked. Madame Lan has always been brooding over the professor's death. She hasn't had a good night's sleep for the past few years. Overseer really can't bear to see Madame Lawn continue like this. He has no other choice, so he plans on pretending to be a saint and enter the Holy Land to take a look. He hopes to find out something, and Xing told Zhou. Even if he can transform into the appearance of a saint, his body is still his. He still can't enter the Holy Land. What's the use of such a disguise? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Don't worry about that. Overseer pretended to be a saint. It's not just his looks. We also used some special methods. Overseer has successfully entered the Holy Land. During this period of time, I hope you can help me preside over Luoyang. Actually, just like last time, you can leave the trivial matters to us subordinates. It won't take up too much of your time, and Xing said. All right. Zhou agreed. Since Tianzhua had taken the risk to investigate the former principal, it was only right for him to guard Luoyang. Furthermore, his family and friends were here. Young Master One, do you think we should settle the important matters first? And Xing said. What's the important matter? Could it be that someone has come knocking? Zhou couldn't help but be taken aback. The last time he guarded Luoyang, nothing important happened. No, but the representatives sent by the various factions wish to meet you, young Master One. Furthermore, they wish to ask you to help them ascend the rankings. Of course, many people want to know how you dodged the calamity grade bullet. After all, such an ability is just too shocking. And Xing recounted the matter. Previously, Tianzhua had held back those people. Now that Tianzhua had left, Zhou could only handle these matters himself. I don't have the time to help them get on the rankings. Let them go home, Zhou said. Ahem, young Master One, I'm afraid that's not good, right? And Xing said hesitantly. Why? Zhou asked. When they came, they brought huge gift. Even if we don't meet them, it's not good to chase them away, right? And Xing said. What did you take? I should have a share, right? Zhou asked. And Xing seemed to be prepared as he took out a list for Zhou to see. Zhou couldn't help but widen his eyes when he saw this. From the list, the gifts weren't light. They knew that the family needed essence crystals, so they basically sent them in tons. Of course, 1 or 2 tons of origin crystals wouldn't be of much help to the clan. But if they gave it to many people, they would still accumulate quite a lot. You sold me out for such a small amount of essence crystals? Zhou said unhappily. It's not just for such a small amount of essence crystals. It's mainly because even the 6 families have sent people over. If we offend all of them, the family won't have an easy time in the future. You also know what kind of environment Earth has. The things that Luoyang can produce are very limited. Many things have to be imported from other places. For example, Luoyang can't produce the most commonly used toilet paper now. It can only rely on imports. There's also salt that has to be imported. If we offend all of them, we won't die, but life will be very troublesome in all aspects. With that said, Xing took out a piece of paper and handed it to Zhou. Also, this is the price they offered. I think even if you reject them, you should take a look first. What price can they offer? They can't possibly give me a Terragrade companion egg, right? Zhou took the paper and his eyes nearly popped out. Is this for real? Zhou asked Xing as he read. The price given was so high that it exceeded Zhou's expectations. There was a tycoon who offered a sky-high price of 1,000 tons of essence crystals just to get Zhou to help him get on the rankings. There was also the Zhang family of the 6 families. The price offered was 10 dragon birth pills, 1,000 spring rejuvenation pills, and a life-reversing talisman. Although there weren't any Terragrade companion eggs, the combined value wasn't inferior to a Terragrade companion egg. The dragon birth pills and life rejuvenation pills were mythical pill essences. Their healing effects were very good. Although the spring rejuvenation pills grade was low, it was very effective in treating external injuries. The most precious thing was the life-reversing talisman. It was said that it could be used to change one's fate. Of course, changing one's fate was just an exaggeration. However, if a person who lost 10 out of 10 gambles used the life-reversing talisman to win 10 out of 10 gambles in a casino, such an effect would be considered heaven-defying. Back then, Lu Yun had been able to steal the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General with the help of the life-reversing talisman. It was said that this was left behind by the Zhang family's ancestral celestial master. Now, no one knew how to make them. The Zhang family didn't have many left. The other large families and some local wealthy families offered ridiculously high prices. There was really a family that offered a Terra-grade companion egg. It was the West District's family clan of gods. If Zhou helped them get on the rankings, he would immediately become a tycoon. Of course it's true. As long as you nod, they are even willing to pay in advance, and Xing said. Don't they know that being on the rankings is useless? Only by getting first place can one become the final winner? Zhou asked and Xing in puzzlement. Of course they know, but their goal isn't to obtain Venus companion beasts. First, even if they can't obtain Venus companion beasts, the metal eggs obtained after clearing the level can still hatch companion beasts in the future. However, their levels will definitely be inferior to Venus companion beasts. I still don't know what will hatch. If a Terra-grade companion beast appears, it won't be a loss. Even if it doesn't appear, it won't be a loss. They are here for the fame of being on the rankings, and Xing explained. What's the use of fame? Zhou didn't understand. Without strength, what was the use of fame? It's very useful. Do you know what we lack the most now? And Xing asked. High-level companion beasts? Zhou guessed casually. No, what we lack the most now is people, and Xing explained. It's not just us. All the large factions are lacking people. Due to the dimensional zones being breached more and more, the isolation of various places is becoming more and more serious. In addition, people are constantly sacrificing themselves. For example, our Luoyang is already considered good, but the number of people has been growing in the negative. If this continues for a long time, there will only be fewer and fewer people in Luoyang. The city will also become depressed, and the economy will decline. All walks of life will face difficulties in survival. When the time comes, I'm afraid we can only fight dimensional creatures together because there's nothing else to do. Then, there will be fewer and fewer people. After all, it's a life at stake. No one can guarantee that there won't be any accident. Although we have already begun formulating policies to encourage childbearing, the effects are too slow. It will take at least 10 years before the initial effects are seen. The fastest way is to attract people from smaller places. For example, our Luoyang is rather famous. Many people come because of our reputation. For some other places, it would not be so easy to attract people to them. However, to be able to get on the rankings, no matter how you got there, at least the people nearby will know that there's such a place. It has the ability to invite a god like you. Once they consider relocating, they will naturally choose that place. And Xing smiled and continued, of course, they will also have other considerations. For example, the 6 families have their own thoughts. I can't be sure. Then do you think I should take on these jobs? Zhou asked and Xing. Chapter 1350. Now you have the final say in Luoyang. You are the king of Luoyang. If you want to accept it, accept it. If you don't, let them wait. If anyone dares to fall out with you, just fight them out, and Xing said with a smile. Zhou pondered for a moment. Then I won't accept it. Prepare yourself and choose someone to follow me to the Venus dimensional zone. Let's get a ranking first. What are your requirements? And Xing asked solemnly. Just run fast, Zhou said after some thought. As long as he ran fast and saved some time, he could save a few calamity-grade bullets on him. Without a suitable target, it wasn't easy to kill a calamity-grade bullet even with a calamity-grade bullet. Zhou planned on returning the invincible Lucky Star to Wang Lu after this. Even if he wanted to rush up the rankings in the future, he would have to rely on his own abilities. Dodging with luck wasn't a long-term solution. Recently, when studying spatial skills, Zhou had a new idea. He felt that he might have a chance of dealing with calamity-grade bullet. Although he had used spacetime theft and absolute space, he was ultimately unable to form an infinite loop of space. Furthermore, he couldn't completely fuse it with the pilfering suns technique. He kept feeling that something was missing. However, after learning the minor heavenly cycle stellar array, Zhou had a new idea. If he couldn't just cast the skill, he could use the array formation to achieve the infinite loop of space. Combining it with the minor heavenly cycle stellar array and the pilfering suns technique, he might be able to achieve infinite space. However, this required a lot of time to experiment and modify. It wasn't something that could be succeeded in a short period of time. Then, do you think Miss Jing will do? And Xing asked. Either. Zhou didn't have any special feelings for Jing. Whether it was Jing or the others in the Sunset Army made no difference to Zhou. Then let's do Miss Jing. Her speed is considered extremely fast among mythical creatures, and Xing said. Zhou thought of something and asked Xing, how did Jing advance to the mythical stage? Zhou still remembered that Jing had contracted a guardian, but the guardian she contracted had been killed by Zhou. Ever since then, Zhou hadn't paid much attention to Jing. Only when he returned 5 years later did he realize that Jing had advanced to the mythical stage. Furthermore, she had disguised herself as Zhou for 5 years. And Xing hesitated for a moment before saying, it's actually hard to say. Miss Jing was able to advance to the mythical stage partly because of her own hard work, but there's also another reason. After pausing for a while, Xing whispered, Holy Land. Zhou looked at Xing in surprise, hoping that Xing could explain clearly. There were too many possibilities in his words, making it difficult for Zhou to guess. In short, it's not my place to talk about this matter. I'll let Miss Jing tell you herself if there's a chance in the future. Just pretend that you don't know anything and don't mention this matter in front of her, Xing said. Okay, go prepare. We'll head to Venus tomorrow morning. Zhou didn't plan on having too much interaction with Jing. He was just a little curious. His peaceful advancement to the mythical stage was actually related to the Holy Land. This was somewhat strange. And Xing told Xing about Zhou heading to Venus to obtain a ranking. And Xing was slightly taken aback when she heard that. He's taking me with him? That's right. After all, we're all family. With such benefits, we naturally have to take them, and Xing said, taking the opportunity to say, why doesn't he get on the rankings himself? And Jing frowned. Young Master Wen doesn't plan on entering the rankings. He's only getting a ranking for Luoyang, and Xing explained. What do I need to prepare? And Jing asked again. Young Master Wen said that after you finish off the 6 golden battle gods, you have to reach the Golden Palace as quickly as possible. The faster you reach the Golden Palace, the less pressure he will face. And Xing naturally wouldn't tell Jing that Zhou wanted to be fast because he wanted to save some time. Got it. And Jing nodded. The next morning, Zhou and Xing and Jing arrived in front of the Rubik's Cube. And Jing stood behind and looked at Zhou with mixed emotions. Over the past few years, she had been working hard to improve herself with Zhou as her goal. She hoped that one day, she could surpass Zhou and use her actions to tell everyone that she wasn't inferior to Zhou. But to this day, the gap between the two of them hadn't narrowed. Instead, it had widened. She hadn't advanced to the Terra grade, but Zhou could already participate in a Calamity grade battle. This gap wasn't small. However, Jing didn't feel discouraged. Back then, she was at the legendary stage while Zhou was at the mortal stage. Yet, Zhou was able to catch up. Her current situation was similar to Zhou's back then. And Jing believed that since Zhou could do it, as long as she worked hard, she would definitely gain something. After all, the higher she went, the slower her advancement would be. When Zhou stagnated, she still had a chance of catching up. Furthermore, she believed that she had the ability to do so. Activate the Rubik's Cube, Zhou said to Enjing. Enjing's body reacted naturally as she listened to Zhou orders and walked towards the Rubik's Cube. After Enjing reacted, she couldn't help but be taken aback. This was because she had subconsciously listened to Zhou orders as though it was a matter of course. Such a reaction didn't seem appropriate for her. This was because she was a person with her own thoughts. There was only one person in the past who could make her carry out orders without even thinking, Tianzhua. Even Ouyang Lan's words were something Enjing had to consider before deciding if she wanted to listen to them. Logically speaking, her relationship with Zhou wasn't good. Furthermore, she viewed him as an opponent, so it was impossible for such a situation to happen. After walking onto the Rubik's Cube, Enjing turned her head to look at Zhou who was standing on it. Zhou stood there casually without any powerful aura, but he made her feel abnormally at ease. It was as though even if the sky collapsed, it wouldn't be a big deal as long as he stood there. Enjing had only felt this feeling from Tianzhua in the past. Now, she felt it from Zhou again. In a daze, Enjing looked at Zhou and had the strange feeling of looking at Tianzhua. Drip blood, Zhou said. Enjing snapped to her senses and lowered her head to drip a drop of blood into the Rubik's Cube's entrance. Instantly, the Rubik's Cube lit up as all the Rubik's Cubes in the world activated at the same time. Another creature has entered the Venus dimensional zone. Who is it? Could it be a human? Holy sh*t, why is it him again? He even brought a beauty this time. Who's that beauty? Enjing from the family. I heard that she's very talented. She's not inferior to Tianzhua. In a few years, she might be another Tianzhua. I don't know if she's Tianzhua, but that Zhou is just too much. Don't tell me he wants to bring someone onto the rankings again? There's only Enjing following him. From the looks of it, this person can only be described with one word. Ridiculous. Amidst everyone's discussion, Zhou and Enjing entered the Venus dimensional zone. It was just like a repeat of the previous time. Zhou finished off the metal guards and golden battle god along the way and advanced into the passageway. Chapter 1351. The calamity-grade bullet sounded, but Zhou dodged it without any suspense. Just like the previous time, all the bullets failed to touch Zhou's body. The seventh bullet, which was a sure kill, could only circle Zhou. When Zhou dodged the first bullet, Enjing didn't immediately rush out. An ancient bow appeared in her hand as she aimed at one of the doors. After the arrow was shot out, it was connected to a thin thread, and the other end of the thread was in Enjing's hand. After the arrow flew out, it immediately pulled Enjing's body out and instantly vanished into the door. The arrow's speed had almost reached the limits of the mythical stage. It was even close to the terror grade. What was even stranger was that the arrow could turn on its own. It flew through the maze-like passageway like lightning, but it didn't hit any walls. Only one sure-kill bullet appeared around Zhou. Just as the second round of sure-kill bullets was about to be fired, Enjing had already arrived in front of the Golden Palace. Landing in front of the Golden Palace, Enjing exerted strength with her fingers and the bow returned to her hand. The Golden Palace's door opened as a metal ball flew out and landed in Enjing's hand. The scene switched back to the rankings. The Sunset Army's name appeared on the rankings. Just like the Federation's Suicide Squad, they had 3 stars. However, despite having the same 3 stars, the Sunset Army was ranked ahead of the Federation's Suicide Squad. Clearly, the Rubik's Cube's main evaluation standard was still Zhou. However, Enjing's performance also played a supporting role. Therefore, it was still 3 stars overall, but its ranking was above the Federation's Suicide Squad. Ordinary people weren't in the mood to care about this. They only felt that Zhou was too much, even more so than the King of Thieves. The King of Thieves had at least put in some effort to snatch the item. However, Zhou only needed to make a single trip to rush to the top of the rankings. Not only would he obtain a Golden Star Companion Egg, but he could also obtain a private training fee. It was the epitome of selling without any capital. When the various factions saw Zhou play like this, they were both envious and depressed. Investigate. We have to find out what method Zhou used to dodge the Calamity Grade bullet. That must be the ability of a special companion beast. An old woman from the Cape family stared at the screen and repeatedly watched the video of Zhou dodging the Calamity Grade bullet. We have to figure out what companion beast Zhou's clothes are. Similar orders sounded in the family clan of gods. It wasn't just the 6 families. Even the League of Defender was studying what companion beast Zhou had to achieve such an effect. They could tell that Zhou's ability was definitely related to the clothes. However, no one knew what kind of companion beast it was. There were too few people who had been to Netherworld City, and there were even fewer people who could enter the 6 paths. Other than Zhou and the others, only Xiao and the other 2 holy disciples had entered. It was just that they did not enter the celestial realm and did not obtain the heavenly robe. After this battle, Luoyang became even more chaotic. All sorts of overt and covert means were used, keeping the military governor's office busy. Fortunately, before Tianzhua had left, he had already done a round of cleansing. It wasn't easy to find new spies to infiltrate the military governor's office. Most people could only think of ways from the periphery. How many are there today? Zhou asked the intruder who had just been caught. The 11th. From the looks of it, they are determined to figure out your background no matter what, no matter the cost, Xing said. From the looks of it, there needs to be a solution to this matter. Otherwise there will be endless trouble, Zhou said after some thought. If it's the overseer, he will teach them a deep lesson so that they won't dare be so brazen again, Xing said after some thought. Unfortunately, I'm not Tianzhua. How about this? Spread the news that I want to sell a heavenly robe companion beast that can dodge Calamity Grade bullets, Zhou said after some thought. Are you really selling it? Xing was somewhat surprised. After all, with such a companion beast in hand, probably no one would be willing to take action. The benefits involved were just too great. That's right. Since they want it so much, I'll give it to them. I don't want them to keep bothering me. Zhou smiled and continued, however, I still need you to handle this matter. You have to make them beg to buy it. The price can't be lowered. Xing understood and asked softly, Young Master One, is there a problem with the heavenly robe? If there's no problem, can I sell it to them? Zhou told Xing that the heavenly robe needed to work with lucky companion beasts. Although lucky companion beasts are very rare, those large factions can still obtain some. What if? Xing was somewhat worried. Don't worry. They definitely won't be able to gather a lucky companion beast with a 100% dodge rate. Zhou knew very well that without Wang Lu's invincible lucky star, he wouldn't be able to achieve a 100% chance. It was useless to obtain more ordinary lucky companion beasts. No matter how high the chances were, it wasn't 100%. One had to use the invincible lucky star's life providence, life soul, wheel of destiny, and terror transformation to achieve a 100% dodge rate. Zhou had tried it in-game. Without activating his terror transformation or using his life soul and wheel of destiny, there would be flaws. There was also a chance of dodging Calamity Grade bullets. However, even if he dodged the 7th sure kill bullet in the beginning, there was still a chance of hitting it later on. It wouldn't keep circling around. Hitting the target was only a matter of time. Even if they could gather a companion beast with high luck, it would be impossible for them to constantly dodge the sure kill bullet. Young Master, it's good that you are confident. Leave this matter to me. The corners of Xing's mouth curled up slightly, as though he was a devil that had found his prey. While Sheng was handling the matter, Zhou took the time to make a trip to the Wang family to return the invincible lucky star to Wang Lu. Tian followed Zhou the entire time, hoping to find an opportunity to figure out where Zhou candy box came from. However, after Zhou returned to Overseer Manor, there were many people following him. Tian didn't find a chance to approach him. Finally, when Zhou came out of Overseer Manor alone, Tian immediately followed him, thinking about how to approach him. It wasn't difficult for Tian to kill Zhou. What was difficult was how to get the answer she wanted to know. Zhou constantly teleported all the way. As he wanted to rush back to the family as soon as possible, he didn't rest at all. Tian couldn't find any opportunity either. When he arrived at the Wang family, Zhou directly teleported to Wang Lu's building. Wang Lu, who had already received Zhou message, happened to open the door. After letting Zhou enter, she closed the door. What is he doing? Tian followed curiously. Like a ghost, she passed through the wall and arrived beside Zhou and Wang Lu. Chapter 1352. Zhou is extremely bad. He wanted to use the celestial robe to deceive others, and now, he sneaked into a woman's room. What is he trying to do? Tian passed through the building and saw Zhou and Wang Lu sitting at the table talking. Their clothes were rather intact, so she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. What are you doing here in the middle of the night? Wang Lu asked. Return the companion beast, Zhou said. You don't plan on going to the Venus dimensional zone again? Wang Lu asked in surprise. She knew how great the benefits were for Zhou to bring people up the rankings. Bringing anyone up meant a huge amount of resources that couldn't be bought with money. Even if I want to get on the rankings in the future, I'll have to use my own abilities. I don't need lucky companion beasts. Zhou extended his hand in front of Wang Lu. Give me your hand. This isn't the tone a gentleman should use when speaking to a girl. Wang Lu smiled as she placed her finger on Zhou's palm. Zhou held Wang Lu's finger and immediately circulated the sky-stealing sun-shifting art to transfer the 5 companion beasts to her. Apart from the invincible lucky star, there was also a heavenly robe, the lucky goddess necklace, the lucky stone fairy, and the lucky flower king. Zhou's mythical companion beasts were transferred to Wang Lu. Without the invincible lucky star, lucky dodge was useless. It was useless keeping so many lucky companion beasts. However, in Wang Lu's hands, they could be extremely useful. Of course, lucky companion beasts could still increase the drop rate. If not for the fact that he wanted to return Wang Lu's favor, Zhou wouldn't have taken them out so easily. Is this what you call paying back 5 times? After Wang Lu received the companion beasts, she sensed the information from them. Her expression suddenly changed. You gave me the celestial robe. What about you? You have the invincible luck star. Only then will you be able to unleash the full potential of the Deva's clothes. Even if I keep it, it will not be of much use to me. Besides, this is not the only Deva's clothes I have. Zhou paused for a moment before exhorting, however, don't let anyone know that you have heavenly robes and lucky companion beasts for the time being. You want to sell the celestial clothes? Wang Lu was smart and immediately guessed what Zhou wanted. Smart, Zhou praised. In that case, I can also take the opportunity to earn a sum, Wang Lu said. You want to sell lucky companion beasts? Zhou also guessed what Wang Lu wanted to do. After the heavenly robes were sold, the person who obtained them definitely wouldn't be willing to abandon them. They would be like Zhou in the past, collecting lucky companion beasts everywhere. When the time came, the price of lucky companion beasts would definitely skyrocket. The low-level lucky companion beasts Zhou had left behind were prepared to be sold when the time came. Anyway, without the invincible lucky star, it was useless to keep so many lucky companion beasts. Just as Xing had said, there was a limit to the luck stat. It didn't mean that having more luck companion beasts didn't mean that the luck stat would increase infinitely. I've collected quite a number of lucky companion eggs in the past, but as they're of the same species, they don't have much luck, so I didn't hatch them. I only kept them as a backup. I can take this opportunity to sell them at a high price. Perhaps I can earn 10s or even 100 times more, Wang Lu said with a smile. Then I'll congratulate you in advance for making a killing, Zhou Wen said as he raised his teacup. It's to congratulate us for earning big money together. Wang Lu also raised her teacup. Adulterous couple. Tian understood their conversation. She originally thought that Wang Lu was rather pure and beautiful, but she never expected her to be so naughty. She couldn't help but mutter. Looking at the two of them smiling at each other, Tian felt like her soul was being tainted. No, I have to think of a way to figure out the origins of the candy box as soon as possible. Tian felt that her mind was about to become impure if she continued following Zhou Wen. After some thought, she felt that it was impossible to approach Zhou Wen under normal circumstances. There's no need to worry so much about dealing with such despicable baddies. I should fight fire with fire and use some extraordinary means. Tian already had an idea in mind as she planned on using a method similar to Zhou Wen's. Unfortunately, Tian didn't know the principle of being stained by one's company. Once she was stained, it would be difficult for her to return. When a person used the same method to take revenge on a bad person, she would no longer be able to return. Furthermore, Tian's previous living environment was just too clean. It was so clean that she was like a piece of white paper, and white paper was the easiest to be stained. After Zhou Wen left the Wang family, he also rushed through the night, preparing to rush back to Luoyang as soon as possible. And Tianzuo wasn't in Luoyang, so he couldn't stay outside for long. If anything happened, he wouldn't be able to react in time. Under the moonless night, Zhou Wen was teleporting when he suddenly saw a blonde girl in white standing at the edge of the forest in front of him. However, upon closer inspection, the blonde girl had vanished like a ghost. Zhou Wen almost thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Just as he was about to rub his eyes, he suddenly saw the blonde girl appear in front of him again. She was so close that he could see her eyelashes clearly. Her hair was disheveled, and her face was pale. She was as terrifying as a ferocious ghost. Zhou Wen was given a fright as he immediately teleported back. He continuously teleported in a bid to escape as he mumbled inwardly, "Why did that blonde girl catch up to me again? How did she find me? Could she be a ghost?" Just as Zhou Wen teleported out, he realized that the blonde girl was right in front of him. He was immediately horrified as he teleported in another direction. However, no matter where he teleported, the blonde girl was already standing there, looking at him expressionlessly like a ghost. After teleporting a few times to no avail, Zhou Wen teleported directly to Venus. However, when he stood on Venus, he realized that the blonde girl was still standing in front of him. She was staring at him like a ghost that wanted to kill him. Zhou Wen had goosebumps all over his body. He looked at the blonde girl and forced a smile. He coughed lightly and said, "Well, we don't seem to have any grudges, right? Why are you chasing me? I died so unjustly. You were the one who caused my death. I want you to go to hell with me." The blonde girl let out a ghost-like voice. "When did I cause your death?" Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback as he asked the blonde girl. "Back at the chocolate shop, you could have saved me. It was because you didn't save me that I died. Now I want you to die with me." As the blonde girl spoke, her figure constantly flashed around Zhou Wen, appearing and disappearing. Zhou Wen couldn't determine her location at all. He didn't even notice the blonde girl standing behind him. Could it be that there are really ghosts in this world? Zhou Wen's legs went limp. He could only be considered half an atheist. This was because he had heard too many ghost stories from his grandfather when he was young. Therefore, although he logically knew that there were no ghosts in the world and that they were at most dimensional creatures, he still felt fear at times. Furthermore, with the hearing that Truth Listener had bestowed upon him, it was impossible for him to completely sense the trajectory of a calamity-grade being. It was even more impossible for him to not discover someone standing behind him. This blonde girl really did seem like a ghost. Chapter 1353. I died so miserably. I died so miserably. The blonde girl's hair was disheveled as she floated towards Zhou. She let out a terrifying cry, making her look like a life-reaping ghost. Zhou's heart palpitated as he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't think of where to run. The other party could keep up with his interstellar teleportation ability. No matter where he ran, he couldn't escape. When a person was forced to the extreme, they sometimes didn't know fear. Or it could be said that they were numb from fear. Zhou was just about to fight with his life on the line when the blonde girl floated over like a life-reaping ghost. Perhaps it was because she was too excited or because she could scare Zhou, she didn't pay attention to the side. As she floated in the air, she didn't notice that her long blonde hair had been hooked by a sharp rock that protruded from the side. As she charged forward, her hair was pulled and she immediately fell to the ground in front of Zhou. Zhou looked at the blonde girl who had fallen to the ground. Their eyes met and the air seemed to freeze. Swoosh! The blonde girl returned to the air as though she had teleported. As though nothing had happened, she continued floating towards Zhou. She once again let out a cry of, "I died so miserably." I died so miserably, however, for some reason, Zhou wasn't afraid at all. He even felt like laughing when he looked at the blonde girl. The blonde girl was clearly very terrifying. Zhou was definitely no match for her, but he couldn't feel the same fear as before. Furthermore, Zhou could tell that the blonde girl seemed to have some concerns. She only circled around him to scare him, but she didn't really want to attack him. Otherwise, with the strength the blonde girl had displayed, she could have attacked him from behind without anyone noticing. There was no need for her to go through so much trouble. Indeed, Zhou stood rooted to the ground. The blonde girl only circled around him, letting out terrifying cries. Apart from that, she didn't do anything else. Then what should I do to let you die in peace? Zhou felt that he should give her a way out. After all, she was a big shot. If she really couldn't get out of this embarrassing situation, she might really kill him to vent her anger. The blonde girl immediately stopped when she heard Zhou. She pointed at the candy box in Zhou's pocket and said without hesitation, "Tell me, where did your candy box come from?" The golden-haired girl was too inexperienced and immediately exposed her purpose. Zhou was slightly taken aback as he sized up the blonde girl. He seemed to think of something as he blurted out, "You're Tian, right?" "How would you know? I'm not the beautiful and adorable Tian. You've got the wrong person." The blonde girl waved her hands in a hurry to explain. "That's such a pity. I found this candy box in Tian's hut and thought that it belonged to her. I've been wanting to return it to the beautiful and adorable Tian, but I haven't been able to find her." Zhou took out the candy box and held it in his hand. "Which hut did you find it in?" Tian quickly asked. "On a doll in the Chaos Hut." Zhou had already guessed that the blonde girl was most likely Tian. Thinking back to what the woman in the wooden hut had said, Zhou roughly knew that the blonde girl was the truly terrifying existence the woman had mentioned. "You're lying. How could my doll steal the candy box?" Tian said in disbelief. "That terrifying doll is just her toy doll? What's the background of this Tian? A dimensional zone like the Time Hut is actually named after her." As Zhou thought, he said, "Why would I lie? Even if I casually said that I picked it up from the table, you wouldn't be able to tell the truth. Besides, if I didn't find it on a doll, how would I know that there was a doll there?" Tian was taken aback by the question. After careful thought, she realized that it was indeed the case. "Give me the candy box." Tian extended her hand. "I can't give you the candy box. Zhouwen took back the candy box and shook his head. Why can't you give it to me? It's not yours, Tiantian said. It's not mine, but it's not yours either. This is the beautiful, kind, and adorable Tiantian's candy box. When I was in the Chaos Hut, my life was in danger and I was almost in a desperate situation. Just as I was about to give up, it was this candy box that gave me hope. It gave me the courage to continue on my path, allowing me to come out alive. I must return it to the gentle and kind Tiantian with my own hands. Even if you want to kill me, I won't give it to you. Zhouwen had been with Li Xian and the antelope for a long time, so he had clearly been led astray by them. Tiantian's face blushed slightly. Her domineering aura seemed to dissipate. Did you eat the lemon candy inside? Tiantian asked Zhouwen, pretending as though nothing had happened. What lemon candy? I only got an empty box. Zhouwen shook his head. That's strange. Although lemon candy has the ability to break through the natural order of life, it shouldn't be useful against a doll. Tiantian frowned in thought. She originally imagined that the candy box had been lost in the Time Hut, but it turned out to be in the Chaos Hut. Furthermore, it was in her doll's hands. In that case, it didn't seem as simple as losing it. There was no reason she couldn't find it in the Chaos Hut. Back then, there was only one possibility for her not to find the candy box. Someone had hidden it. Back then, the only people in the Time Hut were her, little chrysanthemum, Yana, the space-time piglet, and the doll. The space-time piglet and the doll were Tiantian's toys, so the lemon candy was useless to them. Little chrysanthemum was a loyal servant, so it was impossible for her to steal the candy box and lemon candy. Even if she wanted them, all she needed to do was ask. There was no need for her to steal them. It can't be Yana. Although Tiantian thought of the most likely conclusion, she refused to believe it. Is Yana a rather good-looking woman who can grow 6 wings? Zhouwen described Yana's appearance. Did you kill Yana? Tiantian bit her lip and stared at Zhouwen. If the Yana you mentioned is that woman, then I was the one who killed her, Zhouwen admitted readily. Why did you kill her? Tiantian asked with a complicated expression. Because she's too evil. If I didn't kill her, she would have killed me, Zhouwen said solemnly. Why did she kill you? Tiantian didn't believe that Yana was such a person. How would I know? She didn't have any reason to want to kill me. But now that I think about it, perhaps it's because she knew that the candy box was on me and wanted to snatch it. Zhouwen connected the dots, but he deliberately ignored some details. Chapter 1354. Tiantian was in a dilemma. She felt that since Yana was her friend, it was unlikely that she would steal her candy box. However, looking at Zhouwen's sincere look, it didn't seem like he was lying. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. I'm still in a hurry to find the gentle and beautiful Tiantian. The candy box has to be returned to its owner, Zhouwen said as he turned to leave. Wait a moment. Tiantian stopped Zhouwen and walked towards him. Is there anything else? Zhouwen was depressed, but all he could do was stop and ask Tiantian. If it's really as you say, can you and I? Tiantian extended her hand as though she wanted to shake Zhouwen's hand. However, Tiantian seemed to think of something as she quickly retracted her hand. What? Zhouwen looked at Tiantian in puzzlement, unsure what she meant. Nothing. Tiantian and I are good friends. In order to prevent you from stealing the candy box, I've decided to follow you until I find Tiantian and return the candy box to its owner, Tiantian said very naturally. She didn't realize that she was getting better at lying. Even her face wasn't red anymore. But you are a ghost. How can you follow me? Zhouwen felt a headache coming on. If he really brought such a ticking time bomb with him, who knew when she would explode? Why not? Of course you can. From now on, I'll follow you closely. If I discover that you're lying to me, I'll take you to hell with me, Tiantian said, pretending to be fierce. All right. Zhouwen thought for a moment. Since he couldn't beat her, He could only think of a way to make her leave. Thankfully, Tian looked like a naive Tian. It shouldn't be difficult to fool her. Zhou turned around and continued on his way. With Tian's abilities, he didn't have much room to resist if she really wanted to kill him. It was useless to be afraid, so he did what he needed to do. Tian followed behind Zhou. No matter how fast he was, be it teleportation or earth escape, he couldn't shake her off. Every time he turned his head, he could see Tian standing silently behind him like a ghost. As Zhou walked, he thought to himself, Tian mentioned that the lemon candy has the effect of breaking through life's natural order. I wonder what this life's natural order refers to. Was he referring to his level? Will I advance from the mythical grade to the terror grade after eating that thing? Zhou had the urge to take out the lemon candy and give it a try. However, with Tian by his side, taking it out now was equivalent to courting death. Zhou naturally wouldn't do such a foolish thing. Tian followed Zhou like a ghost. She didn't say a word and just followed him. It was unknown what she was thinking. Tian actually didn't believe Zhou's words, but she couldn't find any evidence to prove that Zhou was lying. Therefore, she thought of staying by Zhou's side for now. If he were to lie, he would expose himself sooner or later. Previously, Tian thought that if Zhou lied, he would immediately turn into gold the moment he touched her. However, thinking of what Zhou had done, Tian felt that even if he wasn't lying, he would definitely turn into gold when he touched her. Therefore, that method was useless against him. No matter what, Zhou would turn into gold. When he arrived at a city, Zhou planned on resting and eating something. Of course, eating was secondary. The main reason was that he didn't dare bring Tian back to Luoyang. He needed to consider it again. Zhou walked on the streets for a while and chose a dessert shop. He ordered some cakes, cookies, and pudding. Tian's eyes widened when she smelled the sweet fragrance. The corners of her mouth were slightly wet. "Do you want to eat something? I'll pay." Zhou handed the dessert menu to Tian and asked, "Don't think that you can bribe me with a little benefit." Tian only said that inwardly and didn't say it out loud. The main reason was that she really didn't have much resistance to sweet. "Oh, by the way, you're a ghost. How can a ghost eat dessert? It's my fault for not being considerate enough. I'll buy you some paper money when we pass by a candle shop later." Tian was about to reach out to take it when Zhou took the dessert menu back and placed it on the table before eating by himself. Tian was instantly petrified as she watched Zhou swallow the cute pudding in one bite. Her heart ached so much that it nearly bled. "That's right. Of course I won't eat these things. Of course. I won't." As Tian spoke, the corners of her eyes and mouth twitched. When Zhou saw Tian staring intently at the desserts in front of him, he pretended not to see her. He finished all the desserts in one bite. "I'll pay the bill. Wait for me outside," Zhou said as he walked to pay the bill. Tian wanted to eat but she couldn't. It was a life worse than death. All she wanted was to leave this place as soon as possible, so she walked out without looking back. Soon, Zhou walked out as well. Tian saw that Zhou was holding a box in his hand. With her X-ray vision, she saw that it was an extremely beautiful mini cake. Although it was only a small piece, it was layered and looked very beautiful. It even emitted a rich milky fragrance. "Weren't you already full? Why did you bring another piece out?" Tian wished she could step on Zhou's face. Not only had he eaten so much, but he had even taken it away. Yet, she hadn't eaten a single bite. "Oh, this was an extra piece. They forgot to send it over in the beginning. I only realized that I ordered this when I paid the bill. I can't eat it, so I had to take it away," Zhou said as he suddenly handed the bag to Tian. Tian was immediately delighted as she thought to herself, "Is he giving it to me to eat? Should I accept it? How can I accept something given by such a bad person? But it doesn't seem nice to reject someone's good intentions," Help me throw it away, Zhouwen said indifferently. Tiantian's face immediately darkened as she stared at Zhouwen and said, Aren't you wasting such a good dessert? There's nothing I can do even if it's a waste. I can't eat it anymore. If you find it troublesome and don't want to help me, I'll throw it away myself, Zhouwen said as he retracted his hand. Tiantian's eyes suddenly lit up as she hurriedly reached out to snatch the bag. As she turned around and walked to the side, she said, Let me help you. Don't throw it randomly. It won't be good if you dirty the street. As she spoke, Tiantian's figure drifted away and vanished in the blink of an eye. After turning a corner, Tiantian secretly glanced at Zhouwen. Seeing that he wasn't paying attention to her at all and was walking forward leisurely, she heaved a sigh of relief. She turned around and leaned against the wall. She opened the box inside the bag and raised the piece of cake in front of her. No, I want to eat it. It's just that it's too wasteful to throw it away. It will also pollute the environment, so I can only force myself to do it. Tiantian convinced herself as she puffed up her cheeks and bit off a huge piece. Her cheeks were round and she was so happy that she was about to cry. Zhouwen didn't turn his head, but the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He held his phone and sent several messages. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.